Good evening, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to the Two Mikes, the last show of the week, so that can only mean one thing, Porky Quiz time. And after last night's intellectual discussion about Clement Attlee, the chosen subject is British Prime Ministers since 1945. I'm predicting 3 out of 10. We're also talking James Bond, who's the new one going to be, and how much money is he going to get, and we've got much more, including what really killed people during the plague, and a very ugly-looking, grumpy dog. You're listening to the Two Mikes with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry. It is a very, very pleasant evening here in London. It's cooled down a bit, and it's time to say very good evening to Mr. Mike Porky Parry. Very good evening to you, Mr. Parry.
Well, a very good evening to you, Mike, and, more traffic problems tonight getting to...
Oh, no, well, you can see, because I started to bring the car in,
drives you mad.
45 minutes to go 2 miles.
I know, it's
people won't have much sympathy, I know.
It's an outrage. Yeah. One of these days, we're going to solve this problem by inventing cars that fly, you know what I mean?
Well, that would be helpful.
You know, supercar. Do you have a supercar?
By the way, did you see the other day? I do remember supercar.
Yeah.
Do you remember the other day we were talking about aqua cars?
Yes,
and
yes,
how
yeah.
they have sort of disappeared from view. Apparently, there's a company in Scotland that still makes them.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. I think it might have been in response to the story.
It was.
They heard it.
And they look very similar to the ones that were around in the 60s.
The Triumph Herald and all that kind of stuff.
One.
Yeah, well, that's not a bad idea. Now, another story we're doing tonight, by the way, which I just want to sort of big up now because it's for later on in the show.
Yes.
Because you mentioned London. We're in London.
Yeah.
Sadly, we have to work in the central London. I'd prefer to be working in the Kielder Forest in Northumberland. That's where I'm going to go eventually.
Well, you could probably
and every
work
day
from there.
I come to work in London, I say to myself, where is the Kielder Forest? Okay,
yeah, it's probably still in the same place, I would imagine.
Well, it is, but I mean, when is my day going to come to emigrate to the Kielder Forest? Anyway, the point I was going to say is, it looks like we might have found out the reason for the Great Plague.
Yes. What, you mean what caused it?
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to remember, the Great Plague and the Great Fire of London, which we've already covered on this show, all happened around about the same time.
That's right. Well, some say the Fire of London killed the plague, don't they?
Funny enough, that's why Gravesend is called Gravesend.
Is that right?
They took all the dead bodies out to, far away, like in Gravesend in Essex.
Yeah, it is, yeah. It's down the estuary, isn't it?
That's right, yeah, and buried them all down there. And
that's why Blackheath, of course, has its name. There's a lot of bodies buried there as well.
Absolutely. And so many things happening that year, including the fact that, and we're going to get to this later in the show as well.
Right.
Did you know that on this day, 350 years ago, the Grand Old Duke of York, beat the Dutch on a little peninsula called Long Island, as it is now.
Right, Manhattan.
No, Long Island. Then they took the island in the middle of the East River, which was Manhattan.
Right.
They took that over and they renamed it New York because of the Grand Old Duke of York instead of New Amsterdam.
Which it had already been named by Peter Stuyvesant, right? In fact, there's Peter Stuyvesant, he was a Dutchman.
Peter Stuyvesant's a cigarette.
Yeah, no, the cigarettes were named after this guy.
That'd be ridiculous.
Yes, there was a guy called Peter Stuyvesant.
No.
I thought you were supposed to be a scholar of these matters.
I am a scholar of these matters.
Do you not remember that we had a friend who lived in a place called Stuyvesant Town in Manhattan? It was a sort of a public housing project which was around about
Did we have friends who lived in public housing projects?
Well, yeah, because it's a very cheap place to live.
Well, yeah, I know it is, but I mean,
Mike Miller. Do you remember Mike Miller?
Yeah, I remember Mike Miller, but not good people live there, if you know what I mean.
Well, his wife was American.
Oh, hang on, Mike Miller was the little bald-headed guy with the glasses.
Yeah.
He's having a secret affair, wasn't he, with somebody in America when he came over?
I don't think so.
Wasn't he?
No, I don't think so. Well, I met him because he was working for the Star magazine.
Oh, that's right. Of course he was.
And then he ended up working for Reuters. I think he's still around, actually. He's out in California.
Is he?
He once drove me down Broadway after we'd been in a very run-down bar somewhere up on the top end of Broadway, up Times Square.
Yeah.
And he had a Jeep. And do you know those
I remember this Jeep. I do remember his Jeep.
Do you know the big funnels that used to come out of the ground?
Didn't he? No, I know this is terrible. Didn't he eventually, because I know what you're going to say, he'd had too much to drink to drive, he eventually ran that Jeep off the road, didn't he?
He may have done, I don't know.
No, he did.
But luckily I was not in it. But we were driving down Broadway, and you know how you have to kind of just keep going with the traffic.
That's right.
We were going, and he was chatting away to me, smoking, and we hadn't had that much to drink, but I mean, he probably shouldn't have been driving. And he started heading straight for one of these great big funnels in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, he's about to see it. Of course he's going to see it. As we got closer, I realised he hadn't seen it. And I'm like, Mike! And I literally had to pull the steering wheel off him and go around this thing. Unbelievable.
I know this is a terrible story because it's something that we would urge everybody never to ever do.
Yeah.
But he had a place in the country, or somewhere out of Manhattan.
Yeah.
He was going up there after a session in Manhattan and should never have got into his car, and he literally rolled the car over, and he ended up in jail next day. We got a call. We got a call from him saying he was in jail. Honestly,
right. I don't remember that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
I do. You might be confusing with somebody else.
No,
maligning him.
No, little fellow with the glasses and a bald head, Englishman, obviously. Yeah. No, he did. He got.
I think he was originally from not far from Whitley Bay area. Actually.
Whitley Bay.
Yeah. Which is where we're going very soon. A couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks on Saturday.
Yeah, 2 weeks on Saturday, 24th, Whitley Bay Playhouse.
Yeah, and by the way, you have told
I
the
can't believe
audience...
you never heard about Peter Stuyvesant, though.
I didn't realise that was actually... I mean,
he was a Dutch explorer.
You know, try and think of all the other cigarette brands in America. Salem, that's named after the witches, okay?
Well, not really. It's named after Winston-Salem in North Carolina.
That's what I mean.
Which is a place. It's nothing to do with the Salem witches.
The Salem witches came from Salem.
They came from Salem, Massachusetts.
Well, I know there's a lot of Salems in America.
There are, yeah.
Like there are, for instance, a lot of... actually, there's a lot of Columbuses in America, because when I was sent to cover the election between Walter Mondale and Reagan, that was his second one, wasn't it? I remember being in Costello's on the Friday night, and I got the emergency phone call from the phone box in Costello's, because, of course, no mobile phones in those days. And it was London saying, we decided to do a special on the Democratic candidate, Walter Mondale. Yeah. I said, well, he's not going to win. Right. I said, Reagan is so popular here. Honestly, it doesn't matter. You know, some liberal-minded person in London.
What does he do? Work for the Daily Express?
I've no idea.
How did you get that job?
No, I think they were working on like the Women's Magazine or something like that. You know. So the idea was, and she'd given instruction to the editor. And
also he had Geraldine Ferraro as his running mate.
Absolutely,
which was another reason he was never going to get in, right?
And do you know what? That might have been the peg that
it may well have been. Yeah.
Well, Geraldine Ferraro, the first woman ever to be, the Veep heir apparent. Yeah. And of course we had a very long afternoon in Costello, so I got a car, got out to LaGuardia, and I flew off to Columbus.
Right. In Columbus, Ohio.
Well, this is the problem, because I got to the airport, and no mobile phones and all that. Get me a train, and I landed in Columbus. And rushed out and said, right, take me to the Hilton Hotel, please. I've got an urgent appointment with Walter Mondale's press secretary. Yeah. I thought everybody would be very impressed. The taxi driver said, oh, this guy's going to see, the
future president
the future president's press secretary. Yeah. And he said, okay, sir, where do you want to go? I said, the Hilton. No, sorry, sir. There is no Hilton in Columbus. Right. I said, of course there's a Hilton in Columbus, you idiot. I said, look, and I showed him, he says... may I point something out to you, sir? I said, yeah, what's that? He said, well, this is Columbus, Georgia. I said, yes. He said, your reservation is for a hotel in Columbus, Ohio.
That's never good.
About 1,000 miles away.
I know. I've got a similar story, which I'll tell you about a little bit later on. But funnily enough, talking about Reagan, because we're going to be talking to a guest about James Bond coming up later on in the hour as well. I got home last night. There was a show on about James Bond, the secret James Bond.
Oh, really?
What's
that about?
I was almost going to text you and say you should be watching this, but I didn't want to keep you up.
No.
But it was basically all about the feud between Cubby Broccoli and the other guy. Saltzman, was it?
Yes,
Saltzman?
That's right. Harry Saltzman and Cubby
Broccoli, and how they broke up, and then it was the relationships between Roger Moore and Sean Connery, and how they hated each other. It was actually quite interesting. Right? It's quite an interesting show, but they had Reagan, because it talked about how Cubby Broccoli turned this character into something much bigger than just a film star. It became this kind of cultural phenomenon.
Yes,
and they had Ronald Reagan talking about it, where he said, this guy is great. He's he always gets the girl. He's very smooth. He's very smart. And it's some people criticise him because they say he's only an actor. And then he goes, but everybody has to start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was a very good show. Actually.
No, he's brilliant. Well, of course, the reason the Americans liked it and Cubby Broccoli had to always bring an American element in is that James Bond's Oppo in the CIA was Felix.
Yes, that's right. Felix Leiter.
Felix Leiter, I was about to say. Yeah. And that always gave it. Do you know, I always loved it.
I once knew someone who used to use that phrase as an all-nighter. It was slang for an all-nighter.
Oh, really?
Felix, yeah.
Yeah, we had a Felix last night. Felix Leiter and all-nighter. Yeah. What I used to love about the James Bond films, because we are going to talk about who is the next James Bond going to be.
David Black's coming up very shortly.
David Black's coming shortly. What I used to love is when James Bond was in terrible trouble. Do you remember the start of one film when he had to escape from a load of baddies and he ended up skiing across the Arctic, literally?
Yeah.
Not my favourite one, From Russia with The Spy Who Loved Me, when he came off the mountain with the parachute. Right. This was another skiing start.
Yeah, but this was another skiing start, yeah.
Yeah, and he ends up with a submarine comes up from underneath the ice with a flag of the Union Jack comes out, right? And Bond knows where it is, so he just escapes the villains. He gets in, and guess what? The British Secret Service have sent a 2-person submarine and the only other person in the submarine is a beautiful female captain of a submarine. Right. I didn't know we had them, but apparently we have.
Well, apparently we do, but they have to keep them very well separated from most of the rest of the crew. Now, we've got an awful lot of time. Now, I'll just tell you a bit more about Peter Stuyvesant, because I can't believe you didn't know this. Served as the last Dutch Director-General of the colony of New Netherland from 1647 until it was given to the English in 1664.
No, it wasn't given. We took it.
Well,
the Grand Old Duke of York.
Ceded.
The Grand Old Duke of York said, lay down your arms or we wipe you out.
That's his picture.
Yeah, I don't.
So he wasn't just the name of a brand of cigarettes.
Yeah, I really couldn't give a monkeys about Peter Stuyvesant. You know, the man.
Well, he's the guy that lost New York.
Well, that's tough on the Dutch, but it means nothing to me.
Okay.
Do you think I've got any sympathy for I don't know, Kaiser Bill? I've got no sympathy for Kaiser Bill.
I don't suppose you have.
He lost the war in the First World War. I've got no sympathy for him. I couldn't care less.
All right, well,
I couldn't even care less about the Red Baron.
Really?
And he was a hero.
Right, okay.
To the Germans. Not to me. He shot down all our
Okay, all right. Well, calm down.
He can go and roast. Roast in hell.
We've got lots to talk about. Loads of stories coming up, of course. We might touch upon the grammar school debate as well, because everybody else is getting very worked up about it. I'm not quite sure why.
Well, I'm a grammar school boy.
Well, I thought that's why you'd be interested, and so am I, but bizarrely.
Yes.
But we are the two mics. We are the two mics. We've got loads coming up, including, of course, the Porky Quiz on British Prime Ministers since 1945. This was after the sterling performance that Mr. Parry was thought to have given, or was said to have given, when we interviewed that Clement Attlee expert last night. Do you remember the professor's name? Professor Ben somebody, wasn't it?
Ben. It was Ben. Yeah, Ben. Good lad.
Professor
Good lad.
Ben, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know where you quite got this idea that you were suddenly, transported into a very
John
different...
Bew. It's John Bew.
Into a very different...
Professor John Bew.
Professor John Bew.
Yes.
Is that why you suddenly thought you were sort of transported into some historical place where, you were spouting all sorts of,
No.
I knew a lot of things that you knew?
I knew a lot about the subject, and I just wanted to share my knowledge with the millions of people who listen to this show, okay?
Okay, now Peter says this.
Yes.
Bedford-Stuyvesant, known as Bed-Stuy in New York City, was a neighbourhood featured in Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. Yeah, that's actually in Brooklyn, Bedford-Stuyvesant.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
But Stuyvesant Town is a totally different place, which is actually a sort of public housing area.
And is that where they make the fags?
No, the Peter Stuyvesant cigarettes were just named after Peter Stuyvesant.
And where do they make them?
They make them, I believe, in America.
Well, there must be a town called Stuyvesant then.
Well, not necessarily.
There's a town called Salem, and they make Salem cigarettes. I keep telling you that.
There's not a town called Marlborough, is there?
Yes, there is.
There's a racing team called Marlborough, though, isn't there?
Well, there's also a town called Marlborough, actually, in Wiltshire.
Well, yeah, no, but I'm talking about in America, not in North Carolina.
I don't know.
Anyway,
I bet you there is a Marlborough in America somewhere. There's got to be.
No, there isn't.
There's got to be.
Let's talk to David Black, who's up in Yorkshire, funnily enough, and he is, of course, of the James Bond International Fan Club. David, a very good evening to you.
Evening. No Stuyvesant up here either.
No, exactly right. Now, apparently, we've been reading that despite the fact that Daniel Craig said he would rather stick pins in his eyes than do another James Bond film, apparently, having been offered $150 million to do both of them, he may well be the next in line again.
To be fair, pins or no pins, 150 million, money talks, doesn't it?
Well, it does.
Yeah, but I mean, the point is, does this not give off a particular sort of image, Dave, that if you want to be James Bond, you should actually be prepared to crawl over broken glass to become James Bond, because it's the world's most famous and of longevity, probably the most enduring role in the cinema. Do we really want a James Bond who's trying to make out that he's only doing it for the money?
I know, it's a bit sad, really, isn't it? I mean, let's face it, any of us would do it, really. Give me 10 million, I'll go and do it. I'm the same age.
Yeah. Well, give me 1 million.
But I'm not sure they want a Yorkshireman doing it, though. That might ruin it.
Yeah.
E-bargum.
No, but the point is, Dave, what we're trying to find out is, does it mean that the Bond franchise now is so massive, so huge, that you can justify paying an actor £50 million a film? Doesn't that cause it certainly does in the football industry, it causes a spiral where everybody else's wages have to go up.
It does, you're right, absolutely. And I know that the producers in years gone by always said, no one's bigger than the film, and they've been very happy to drop people like Pierce Brosnan and the likes, and just say, no, we're not paying anymore. Off you go. Let's get someone else.
Although, David, I was just mentioning to Mike here, I saw a show last night, I don't know if you saw it on ITV, which was sort of a behind-the-scenes of the Bond movies. It was quite interesting. It was all about how Cubby Broccoli fell out with Saltzman, but how he also fell out with Sean Connery as well. Because when Sean Connery decided he didn't want to do it anymore, he felt betrayed because he'd sort of made Sean Connery into a very rich man, and he didn't want anything further to do with the show.
Yeah, that does seem to happen a bit. I think you'll find most of them fall out with each other. I mean, Roger Moore, I think, is friendly with the producers, and the rest of them, I think they all feel a bit jilted. But it's a strange carry-on, isn't it? To the outside world, we all think, what a dream job, being dressing up, driving fast cars, nice girls, and all these guys that get to do it go, it's absolute hell, I can't cope with this anymore.
That's right. Now, in your opinion, Dave, because you know these things better than we do, there is a list of 7 or 8 potential new James Bonds. Hiddleston, what's his name?
Idris Elba.
Idris Elba, thank you very much indeed. Who's the guy with the ginger hair?
The ginger hair, Chris Evans.
No.
Not him, I hope, is it?
You know the guy, the classic actor. He was in
Damien thingy.
Damien
Lewis.
No, Damien Lewis is one. The other guy was in the film about
he's got ginger hair.
The famous scientist.
What?
And the guy.
This is what I have to put up with every night, Dave.
But anyway, Dave, what I'm saying is these guys have been on tenterhooks now for the last 18 months since Daniel Craig said he wasn't going to do another one. Now, how do these guys vie for popularity? I mean, we think Tom Hiddleston, famous for The Night Manager. We think he went to the extremes of picking up the world's most famous female pop star just to promote his image. I mean, this is getting pretty serious, isn't it?
Well, I suppose it is. They all want to have a go at it, really. They all deny it, and don't they? But in the background, I've sort of known for a while that I thought he'd be back. Good old Daniel, but it's not signed and sealed yet, so there's still a chance. But
when is the actual? I mean, aren't they still working on quite a tight schedule as far as when they need to start making the next one?
Yeah, I think it'll be fairly soon. But even if he does 2 more, it's the same thing. He'll be too old then anyway, so someone's going to have to stand in. Let's not forget, he stood in because the last guy was too old, and he was 38. They released the trailer for Casino Royale 10 years ago today, so that just shows how time flies.
Wow.
We're having fun.
Who was the last one? Was it the Irish guy?
Pierce.
Pierce Brosnan. What? And they thought he got too old, did they?
Yeah, he was in his mid-50s, and of course, by 2 more films have passed. Daniel will be, he'll be 52 or something.
No, he's 48 now, isn't he? You're absolutely right.
Yeah, a couple more films.
Mind you, he keeps himself in better shape probably than any other James Bond, doesn't he? As evidenced by the budgie smuggling episode,
Yeah, I think it's all that hard work. I don't think he'd be quite as good shape next time. Well, I mean, I'm being a bit picky because it's hard work, and he wants to grow old gracefully.
That's right. Now,
he's in better shape than me, though.
But it's an amazing franchise, isn't it, really? I mean, obviously Harry Potter, I think, has maybe overtaken it now in terms of how much money it's made in
but there's not going to be any more Harry Potters, though, are there?
Well, no, there aren't. But, I mean, in terms of the amount of money that they can now afford to pay James Bond, I mean, they didn't used to... I mean, we've had a tweet from somebody earlier saying, 120 million was about how much the films made before, but they make a lot more now.
That's it. I'll tell you an interesting fact, that he was paid enough in the last film that he was paid more than all the Bonds in all the previous films added together for the last film. So this beats that again.
Yeah, that's incredible. The other fact I read, Dave, and I couldn't believe it, is I saw a list of the highest revenue-earning Bond films since the start.
Yeah.
So I assumed, and the last one was called what?
Spectre.
That was the top, and that was over $1 billion. But I thought, well, it's bound to be each successive film because of inflation. But it said the second highest earning film in money of the time was Thunderball.
Oh, really?
Thunderball, that's right. Yeah.
Which earned over £1 billion in those days.
Yeah.
I mean, that's sensational.
Well, again, on this programme last night, they said the first Roger Moore movie didn't make very much money at all. And
really?
had it actually not done well, had the second Roger Moore film not done so well, he probably wouldn't have lasted.
He'd have got the boot, would he? Yeah. But nevertheless, Dave, and the other enduring thing about James Bond is they were wilting. The Bourne films came along and smashed them out of the frame of the theatre, really, because it was so dynamic and realistic, and yet somehow James Bond came back, didn't it?
Yeah, he's never gone far away. Every time a film comes out, people say, oh, this is it, he's not relevant, here he goes. But let's face it, if the film studio are going to clean up with £1 billion, you'd have to be mad not to make another. Well, and they'll be making it long after we're gone, I should imagine. Who Bond will be then, I have no idea.
Yeah, and Matt Damon on those Bourne films, by the way, just a slight diversion, they had to bring him back, didn't they, when they made a film without him?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see, I haven't seen the latest one, but it's meant to be good.
Yeah, was it called Matt Damon?
No,
it's called Bourne. So it's called Bourne.
Well, it's not called Matt Damon. No, Matt Damon's the actor's name.
That's right. I mean, it's called Bourne.
They made the fourth one without him.
That's right.
And it wasn't as good.
No, it wasn't as good.
All the stunts were the same, all the action was the same, but without him, somehow something was missing.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, Dave, man maketh the film, and that might be why, at the end of the day, Daniel Craig is worth $100 million for 2 films.
Well, they obviously like him. They think he's worth a lot. Whether he's worth that much, who knows? I mean, he's great. Let's face it. Would I pay him that much?
Well, I would if I got £1 billion return.
Yeah, I suppose that's it.
Good investment, that. It's 10 times your money.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. Well, listen, David, thank you very much indeed for joining us. David Black there from the James Bond International Fan Club. We're not sure when the next film's going to be made or who's going to be in it, but if it's Daniel Craig, $150 million will be coming his way. Got a couple of tweets here. James says this, Yorkshire Bond is the answer. The name's Bond, Jim Bond.
Jim Bond.
Do you want drinks? A pint of bitter. Don't bloody shake it either.
That's right, yeah.
That'd be quite good, that.
Yeah. That actor who came from the same town as me, Chester.
What, Daniel Craig?
No. Well, actually, funny enough, Daniel Craig did. But no, there was a comedian from the Black Abbots called Russ Abbott.
Yeah, I remember.
And Russ Abbott came from a little village called Christleton, just outside Chester, and we used to see them at the Gateway Theatre in Chester, right?
Yeah.
He started on stage as a comedian by mocking James Bond and calling him Basildon Bond.
Yes.
And,
a couple of people have been mocking you and saying that if they need a new odd job, you could be up for it, and also calling you either Bubble 07 or Blubber 07.
That's a bit harsh,
which is very harsh indeed. Now, coming up, we've got lots more to do. We're going to revisit the new Amsterdam, New York scenario as well. We are the two mics, of course. We've got the Porky Quiz coming up a little bit later on, which is, of course, on the British Prime Ministers since 1945. Porky claims he's an expert on it. I'm predicting 3 out of 10. Now, we were talking earlier about New York and New Amsterdam.
Certainly were.
It's the 350th anniversary, I think, is it not?
It's incredible,
isn't Peter Stuyvesant losing, the guy you'd never heard of.
Yeah, that's right,
losing to the Grand Old Duke of York. Is he the guy they wrote the song about? The Grand Old Duke of York.
Yes, the Grand Old Duke of York.
Halfway up and halfway down.
Yes, he had 10,000 men. He took them up to the top of the hill and he brought them down again.
No, that wasn't about New York, though, was it?
No, it wasn't about New York. Now, what I've done is, right, I've tried to propose that if the Grand Old Duke of York hadn't taken back Manhattan, right, from the Dutch, it would still be called New Amsterdam. And if it was still going to be called New Amsterdam...
Yes.
And they were Dutch. Yeah. This is what this famous Frank Sinatra song would sound like. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of it. New Amsterdam, New Amsterdam. These vagabond shoes are longing to stray straight through the very heart of it. New Amsterdam, New Amsterdam. I want to wake up in city that don't sleep, and to find I'm king of the hill and the top of the rubbish heap. These little town blues melting away. I should make the brand new start of it in old Amsterdam. I can make it share. I make it everywhere. It's up to me. New Amsterdam. New Amsterdam.
I don't think the state of Frank Sinatra's got too much to worry about.
Well, the thing is, that's what Frank Sinatra would have sounded like had the Dutch not been booted out of New York.
Well, it wouldn't be called New Jersey, I suppose, either, would it?
No, it wouldn't.
What would New Jersey have been called then?
Well, I don't know. Maybe...
New Rotterdam.
Yeah, New Rotterdam or New... New Amsterdam. Or
Schiphol.
New Schiphol or something like that. Yeah, something like that. I don't
Ajax.
know. Or even...
any other places in Holland that you can think of.
Absolutely. But the point is, what I'm saying is, the reason that Americans speak like they do, is because, of course, it was the Pilgrim Fathers who landed on Plymouth Rock.
Plymouth Rock, yes, up in New England.
Exactly, and they came from Plymouth.
Yeah.
Now, as you know,
it wasn't called Plymouth Rock when they landed on it, was it?
No, it wasn't. It was after they got on
because it wasn't just a coincidence when
they
went, oh, look, we've come all the way from Plymouth, and look, there's a rock here called Plymouth Rock.
No,
horrendous.
No, they named it Plymouth Rock, obviously. But the point I'm making is that, you know the way that people speak in the West Country, in Devon and Cornwall, they speak like this, hello, my boy.
Right.
You know,
Poldark style.
It's nice to see you here in Devon and Cornwall.
Yes.
I think we'll get in this boat and go to the New World. When we get the New World, we'll have a settlement.
Well, mostly it was because they were being prejudiced against, was it not? Because of their religion.
That's right. So they get over there, and that is the basis of the American accent.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you know what's really weird, actually? There's places called the Barrier Islands, which are down in North and South Carolina.
Oh, yeah,
Do you know where the mainland...
The Carolinas, yeah.
Yeah, there's but there's a bit of a break between the mainland and
yes.
It's almost like this sort of outer strip of land.
Yes, I do, yeah.
And there's people there who still speak a bit like that.
Raleigh-Durham, isn't it?
Raleigh-Durham's sort of inland.
Exactly,
but if you go all the way out to these what they call the outer Barrier Islands, people still have that kind of accent.
Really?
Because they've not moved.
I see.
They've stayed in that part of the world.
I see, yeah. Whereas if the Dutch still owned it, then everybody would speak like Louis van Gaal.
Yeah.
I saw a mouse there on the stairs.
Well, there's still parts of the Caribbean that have got Dutch influence, aren't there?
Yes, there are. And in fact, Henk Potts, who is a sometimes contributor to our breakfast show
on TalkSport,
on TalkSport, a chap from Barclays, is of Dutch extraction.
Is he?
And goes for his holidays to that Caribbean
Dutch
island.
Antilles. Is it Dutch Antilles?
No, it's not Dutch Antilles. It's the other one. I can't remember what it's called now. But he seems to go there all the time. It is of Dutch extraction.
And there's Dutch Guyana as well, isn't there?
It's named in the famous Beach Boys song.
Aruba and all that.
It is Aruba.
Aruba.
It's Aruba.
Is it?
Aruba, absolutely right. Yeah.
Well, there we are.
Right.
And also the other place where they've got very funny accents. I don't know if you
Yes.
ever went there. Was Newfoundland. Ever been there?
No, I haven't. Isn't that in Canada?
Yeah, it is. It's off the coast of Canada.
Yeah,
it's
that's
like the first big landmass that you hit if you're coming in a ship. Because a lot of people came from, latterly, not after the Pilgrims and all that.
Yes.
They came from places like Liverpool
yes, that's right.
and the West Country as well. And in Newfoundland, they talk with a very, very pronounced, sort of almost Scouse accent.
Do they?
Yeah.
Really?
It's a very weird accent they've got.
I've never heard that. I mean, I've been...
I had to go there once to follow Prince Edward around.
Oh, okay.
Who was on one of these minor sort of royal tours.
Yeah. Probably the... Well, I was going to say, I don't quite understand the point of Prince Edward. I'm not sure what he does and all that kind of stuff.
No,
so probably
not many people do.
Probably the royal who struggles most to justify his position in the royal family, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah.
You'll be pleased to know Brian says this. A brilliant song from Porky. If you are hard of hearing, sorry to say, MG, I think you just lost quite a few listeners.
What? What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Well, he said it was a brilliant song, so I don't know why he's giving you a hard time.
I don't know either. No.
And then
it was pretty good.
Ian says, New Amsterdam, nothing like a little casual racism and bigotry first thing in the morning. Hilarious, though.
What?
I don't know why he's calling it casual racism. What's racism
what's
about
casually racist about saying that New York could have been Dutch, but it's now English? Yeah. What is racist about
James
that?
says, good God, Porky, my dog just bolted out the door.
Oh, really?
How can anyone not love these guys?
And Rob here says, if the Dutch would have won, why not sing in Dutch and not German? No, that was Dutch. Don't you understand? It was Louis van Gaal.
And here's Peter saying, did I just hear Louis van Gaal singing Sinatra?
Yes, you did actually. Yeah. Yes, you're absolutely right. It was very much of the same dialect.
Yes.
And yeah, you're right. My dog's just bolted out the door. Dear me, how can that happen?
Shocking, absolutely shocking. Yeah. When I went up to, it was one of those unfortunate trips I made up to Newfoundland because most of the other English papers couldn't be bothered tracking Prince Edward because they didn't really ever do anything interesting.
So
I was the only Brit there, and everybody else. He went to Nova Scotia, Halifax, which is what has to be described as quite a sleepy town, but quite picturesque.
Yeah.
But if you think that's sort of, out in the backwoods, you should go to Newfoundland, which is literally a rock in the middle of the Atlantic.
Yeah.
And it's got a couple of towns on it.
Is it an island?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realise.
Yeah, it's kind of out. It's sort of out
I
there.
didn't know.
Yeah. And it's very barren and it's very cold. And it was August, right? So I flew up from New York just dressed like this with a short sleeve shirt on. And I think a pair of shorts as well because I was going to change when I got up there.
Yeah.
The airline lost my luggage.
Oh, right.
So I got up there and it was about sort of,
minus
12 degrees, 13 degrees, something like that. So I had to buy a whole load of new clothes.
That's ridiculous. And wandering around in shorts, people must have thought you were mad.
But because it was quite a low-key thing, and he didn't think there was any British press around, they had a reception, to which I was invited.
Right.
Which is always very unusual with the Royals, because they always wanted to keep 100 miles away. Because I was covering it for the News of the World at the time, which was still in those days a decent newspaper. And he did this little thing.
Well, it's still a newspaper, full stop. It isn't now.
Well, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Exactly.
But, it's now kind of, being named as this terrible organ, which we're not going to get into. But anyway, so he came round sort of shaking hands with everybody. And he finally got to me and said, "Oh, hello, I'm Prince Edward. How are you?" Yeah.
Was he going bald at the time?
He was, very, very bald. Yeah.
Was he? Yeah.
And we were basically trying to find out what he was doing when he wasn't doing these public appearances.
Yes.
Was he going out with finding any women? Was he finding any men?
No. I know exactly where you're coming from here.
Yeah.
You were delving into his private life.
We were, yeah, because it was quite boring, and we thought he must be up to something, Anyway, he introduced himself to me, and he said, "Oh, where are you from?" Because everyone else had been from like Halifax, Nova Scotia, or Newfoundland. I said, "I'm from the News of the World," and he went completely pale. tail.
Really?
Like, completely puce.
Yes.
And just ran off, basically, into the back room.
Really?
Wouldn't speak to me.
Didn't he have people alongside him, like minders and all that?
Well,
kind
no,
of
because
stuff?
it was very, very informal.
see,
Because he
yeah.
didn't think there was any British press there.
I see. Why didn't you just say I'm from New York? You know, why didn't you lie?
Well, because I didn't want to lie. I wanted to see his reaction.
You should have said, well, I'm
Plus,
from New York.
lying is not part of my nature, unlike you.
You should,
lying is not part of my nature.
You should have said, you know, I've just been a huge fan of the British royal family ever since I came here to work. I'm now based in New York, run my own company.
Yeah.
The thing is, sir, I couldn't, avoid or ignore the opportunity to meet you in person. Thank you so much. And then he'd start talking to you, and then you've got a great story.
Well, then what would he have told me?
Well, he might have said, "Oh, really? And what's New York like?" And you should have said,
"Well, that's not much of a story, is it?"
You should have said, "Well, it's a really, really lively social life there, sir. Do you like a lively social life?" And then he might have said something, and then you'd got a story.
Yeah, well, there was no story to be had off him.
You need a bit more rat-like cunning.
Do you think? Well, I'm the one that ran my own business very successfully. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I don't think I need the instructions in rat-like cunning.
Yeah.
But I did, unfortunately, have to deal with the truth, which I know is something you're not very familiar with.
Excuse me, that's a bit harsh. Listen, by the way, I've got a great tweet here. Thank you very much indeed to the person concerned. I'm trying to find it on my information device, but I'm not out of favour about it. It says here, Mike, tell old MG, this is from Andy.
Okay.
I have just spotted on my Google map, Marlborough, Massachusetts, United States.
Well, I'm sure there is a place called Marlborough.
I told you there'd be Marlborough.
Yeah, but not named, not that was named for a cigarette company, and that's what I'm saying.
No, but what I'm saying is every town in Britain
yes, I know that.
has an equivalent
that's
named
obvious.
Town in America.
Yes, I know that's very clear.
There's a Dundee.
Yes.
There's a Manchester.
Yes, there is.
There's a
Manchester, New Hampshire.
Yeah, there's a Birmingham.
Yeah.
There's
Birmingham, Alabama.
Absolutely.
There are. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But my point was that they did not name Marlborough cigarettes after a town called Marlborough.
Well,
they did name Salem cigarettes after a town called Winston-Salem.
A town called Salem?
In the same way they called Winston. By the way, speaking of all that sort of thing, I saw an advert as I was coming in tonight.
Oh, yes.
They must be making a new version of the Blair Witch Project. Have you seen that?
I never saw the original film. Was it any good?
Well, I didn't think it was great, but it's very frightening.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, so if you like horror films, you might want to go and see it.
Manny says here in a text,
see the time, by the way.
My ears are bleeding.
Yeah.
I think that's all the rubbish you talk. That's what he must be referring to.
No, I think he's referring to your singing.
I don't think he is. I don't
as
think he
some
is.
others would call it. Now, coming up, we've got lots more to do. We are at the Two Mics. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to be talking to Vanessa Harding, who's a professor of London history at Birkbeck University.
Yes.
Or Birkbeck College, I should say, University of London.
Yes.
Talking about the Great Plague. And what it is that they've now discovered about what actually killed people. So that'll be quite interesting. That.
Well, it'd be very interesting because I've always assumed that there were rats because it coincided with the expansion of trade to the east.
Yes.
So we thought
the rats came on the ships.
The rats came on the ships from places like China and Singapore. Not that I'm suggesting they're rat infested.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of rats there, if you see what I mean.
Right.
And then the rats came back on the ships. They landed in London. The rats came off the ships.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, plagues, which most people in the Far East were immune to, by the way, because, they'd had it for hundreds of years.
The DNA might be slightly different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it was a bit like, when the white settlers went and invaded places like South America, like the Incas and all that.
Yeah.
They all died of diseases that we took to them.
That's right.
In the same way, the rats from the Far East.
Cortez the Killer. It's a great song by Neil Young.
Cortez the Killer.
Yeah.
Absolutely right, yeah.
Now, I'm going to tell you about my story of misdirection in America in a moment, but there was something else I was going to tell you, because my kids went to see the Cuddy Sark the other week.
Oh, did they?
Brilliant,
isn't it?
It was amazing. In the process, and they really liked it, in the process of discovering how far it had gone.
Yes.
Apparently, it had gone on so many voyages, it was equivalent of going all the way to the moon.
Say it again?
They had been on so many voyages, the number of miles that it had done.
The Cuddy Sark?
The Cuddy Sark,
You mean rushing back from India with the tea?
Yeah, rushing backwards and forwards. It was the fastest clipper ship in the world for a long time.
Oh, that's why it was so good.
Yeah.
Because what happened was every crop of tea was loaded onto the boats, and then the one that got back first got the premium price.
Exactly.
And by the time the 12th boat got back, all the markets had been
exactly right.
been saturated.
But it had been on so many voyages that it was equivalent of going to the moon. That's how far it had gone.
That is amazing.
Isn't that an amazing
That's
statistic?
amazing. Do you know how long it took to get back?
What, in the boat?
Yes.
From where?
From India.
Well, it depends which part of India, doesn't it?
Well, yeah.
Because if they're coming from what was then Ceylon, it's a lot longer, I suppose, than if you're coming from, say, Bombay.
Yes, you're absolutely right. But, I mean, Ceylon was the main tea-growing area.
Yeah.
So from there back to the East India Dock, because that's what it was called, 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
6 weeks, yeah.
Yeah. And they were put out of business basically by steamships, because
yes,
the
they were, of
steamships
course they
got
were.
quicker.
Well, they were put out of business by two things. One was steamships, the other one was the Suez Canal. because then you didn't have to sort of take such a
long
long-winded journey.
Exactly. The Horn.
You went up to the Red Sea, through the Persian Gulf, and ended up in the Mediterranean.
It's probably a much less arduous trip as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Not so dangerous.
Well, you don't have to go through,
around the Horn of Africa.
The
Horn of Africa.
Yes.
You're going to say the Cape of Good Hope.
The Cape of Good Hope, absolutely.
I could see you were about to say that.
And by the way, I've seen where the oceans meet. I've seen where the Indian Ocean meets the Atlantic Ocean at the very point where the two oceans meet.
Cape Town?
Well, it's south of Cape Town, obviously, because it is the Cape of Good Hope, but it's not far from Cape Town.
Okay.
Absolutely right.
And does it look like two oceans meeting?
It does, yeah. Yeah, you can see where the waters bang together.
Really?
Yeah, you can. It's a fantastic phenomenon.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, here's my story about going to the wrong place in America, but it wasn't actually my fault.
Okay.
Because it was the person who booked the tickets' fault. Because the news desk person said to the secretary in those days, used to book the tickets.
Yes.
We need to send Mike to Jackson, Mississippi, to do a story about Gary Hart, who was at the time running for president.
Yes, he was.
The guy who
was found out to be on a boat called the Monkey Business.
Monkey Business, yes.
And had a rather attractive lady sitting on his knee.
A blonde woman, yes, who he'd been having a long affair with. So that was the end of him.
That's right.
And he had to resign. But anyway, so I got to Jackson, Mississippi, and thought, better call with the office and find out what it is, because it's one of those sort of rush jobs. So I went without really talking to anyone very early in the morning.
Yes.
So I arrived at Jackson Airport in Mississippi and rang the news desk to say, right, what do you want me to do? Because I've now landed.
Yeah.
What's the story about Gary Hart?
Yeah.
And they went, what are you doing there? I said, well, I'm in Jackson, Mississippi. That's where the tickets sent me to. I was told to go. And they went, no, you're supposed to be in Gary, Indiana, doing a story about the Jackson 5.
Oh, I see.
And they got the wires completely crossed.
That was a complete mess up, wasn't it?
Complete mess up. So I then had to get a flight from Jackson, Mississippi to Gary, Indiana, which was about, as you say, probably about 1,000 miles
That's
away.
That's right,
ridiculous.
something like that, yeah.
Absolutely hopeless.
It happens. That Gary Hart, by the way, his name was originally Gary Hart Pence.
Oh, was it?
So he shortened it to Gary Hart because he thought that was punchy, a bit like Bill Clinton, although Bill wasn't around in those days, obviously. But it was so funny. He went to a public meeting, and he was somewhere down in Florida, wasn't it, where the boat was?
I think it was, yeah.
I
think it was Florida. No, I'm pretty sure it was.
I think
Florida.
It was Florida. And what happened was
it was like Fort Lauderdale or somewhere, wasn't it?
Yeah, Fort Lauderdale. And the editor of the local paper, because we have to explain to our listeners, in this country we have national newspapers, and they cover the whole of the country. America's too big for national newspapers, so the local papers are very powerful. We were in those days before the internet.
Absolutely.
Well, very powerful. The voice of.
They had all the local advertising and all the rest of it.
Everything. Local senators. Local congressmen.
I think a lot of them have now gone out of business. Or just online only.
They have. But nevertheless, in those days. So Gary Hart Pence had a rally there, and a reporter was there from the local paper, and he tried to mock the local reporter and said, and by the way, guys, you've been asking questions about my private life. Don't ask questions about my private life. He says, you think I'm doing anything wrong? Well, why don't you just follow me around and you'll find out I'm not. So the reporter, honestly, this was a Friday night, so the reporter goes back and he sees his editor and he says, how'd it go? He said, oh, well, it wasn't that interesting. He said, but he threw out a challenge to us to follow him around.
Right.
So it's a good idea.
Right.
So then that's when he was found on the Monkey Business, the boat, with all these
was it the National Enquirer that actually broke the story initially, the first time around?
No, I think it was the local paper, honestly. But I think the Enquirer went and just paid up loads of money exclusively for the pictures and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, somebody called BMW says, and now a geographical nautical lesson from Mike Parry. More butchered facts.
What do you mean?
Well, he's claiming that you've butchered all the facts.
What do you mean? What facts then?
Well, which facts? I don't know which facts you're talking about.
I'm sorry, you can't make an accusation like that, I've got my nautical, points of the compass wrong, unless you provide some evidence. So more evidence, please.
Okay. James says this, thanks for the advice, Porky. I just booked a fortnight in the US, a week in Lambert and Butler, and then another week in Benson and Hedges.
Excellent. Well done. And go to Capstan and go to Players and go to Woodbine. That's a great place.
Woodbine,
yeah, that'd be good, yeah. Now, I've got one here, and I can't understand it from Rob. He says, so funny. Porky proved there's a Marlborough. Hang on, it's gone off here. There's proof there's a Marlborough in America, but I bet there's no Gravesend in Essex. I didn't say that, did I?
Well, you said there was a Gravesend in Essex.
Yeah, I think you did, yeah. So I'm not sure about that. But anyway, Rob, it's good of you to contribute to the show. Thank you very much indeed.
Absolutely right.
Yes.
Now, as far as the Porky Quiz goes, we're coming up with it, I think, in the next hour, yeah.
Yes.
So it's actually not very far away. So
no, it's always in the last hour.
Well, not in this show.
What?
No, this show it's in the next hour.
Well, hang on, I'm on my preparation for it.
Well, you better start doing your preparation now. That's why
I've done all my preparation, but my brain is tuned to the last hour.
That's why I'm giving you a heads up.
My brain is tuned to the last hour.
Last night we did Porky Vision in the 8 hour, and we also did the Ask Porky in the 8 Hour as well. So you should have realised that.
All right, well, it doesn't bother me.
It's just I'm giving you a warning. So that you know.
I'm so confident about my knowledge, I really don't mind.
Have you been studying particular subjects today?
Well, why should I? I know everything about Prime Minister since the Second World War, you know.
But anyway, let's go back to the ridiculous argument that people seem to be now having about the evil that is being told about grammar schools, right? An endless stream of various people, I'm sure on Talk Radio, also on Sky TV today, basically going on about how, it's almost like, so I saw a tweet from somebody who said, selling arms to the Saudis, not doing anything about climate change. Now they want to bring in grammar schools. As if it's like the most horrible evil that you've ever heard of.
Exactly, yeah.
When I was at grammar school, most of the kids at my school, because it was on the cusp of Holland Park and Shepherd's Bush, were working class kids.
Yes.
And it was not in any way. And I know now grammar schools have become slightly more middle class because people try and get their kids into grammar schools and they move them closer to them. Of course they do. But in the days when there were a lot of grammar schools, most grammar schools were full of very,
I totally agree.
underprivileged kids.
If every town had a grammar school, then parents who could afford it wouldn't start moving towards the few grammar schools that are left. I think there's about 130 grammar schools left in this country. So parents who know that they are an absolutely fantastic academic institution want to go there, so they move to the town that's got a grammar school for their children. Right. That's why they become elitist.
And that's happened in Kent, and it's also happened in parts of Manchester as well.
Well, I went to the King's School Chester, as everybody knows, and it was a direct grant grammar school, which meant that half the places were paid for by the local authority, Cheshire County Council. And in my class, there was a lad called Fred Butters. I'll never forget him.
Fred Butters?
Yeah, Fred was from an early age very left wing. He was left wing radical, and he used to participate in sort of kind of extreme left wing politics, like socialist workers and all that. But that's what people do at school when you're 16 and 17, all that kind of stuff. But the point of my story is his father was a bus driver. We once got on a bus that was, that turned up at the King's School Chester, because we used to have special buses used to come into the school, pick us up, because we were on the Wrexham Road outside of Chester, and take us back to Chester city centre. Right. And one of the days, his dad was driving the bus. So that's how sort of meritocratic of it. The other guy, so Fred was on my left, his dad was a bus driver. The guy on my right was a lad called Chris Conway. And
amazing you remember their names.
I can remember their names. And his father was a really big chief at Cunard. Right. Now, Cunard in those days had their HQ in the Liver buildings in Liverpool. Okay. The buildings I'm talking about, very famous
on
buildings.
The Liverpool docks,
And it was still a Liverpool-based company. And his father, I don't know what his father was. I don't know if he was chairman or chief executive or whatever, but he was big in Cunard. And he used to arrive in a chauffeur-driven car. Right. Now, Fred Butters used to arrive on the bus like everybody else, but the chauffeur-driven car. A third friend of mine, a lad called Bob Sharples, who had a miserable time as a schoolboy because everybody called him Ena. Right. Because
of Coronation Street.
Ena Sharples was the old rat bag of Coronation Street, who wore a hairnet and all that, and Bob hated it. But his dad was a fireman. And, other people, as you say, oh, you mean your father's a fire officer? Yeah. He said, no, my dad's a fireman. Yeah. Sorry, what do you mean? Like he gets into a fire engine and goes to where there's things burning. He said, that's what firemen do,
that's what firemen do.
And that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
So
but it was by far and away a very, very kind of even
I thought it was brilliant.
playing field, wasn't it?
I thought it was brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant.
It was. Anyway, well, apparently lots of people think they're very, very evil, and I'm sure plenty of people have talked about it all through the day. I just wanted to mention it in passing, because I just think it's ridiculous that it's being somehow lambasted as a terrible way to educate people. Anyway, we've got lots more coming up in the next hour. Vanessa Harding's going to be here talking about what actually caused the Great Plague, and also it is, of course, the Porky Quiz. Good evening, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to Two Mikes. It's Porky Quiz time, of course, coming up in this hour, because it is the last show of the week. The chosen subject, British Prime Minister since 1945. I'm predicting 3 out of 10. Also coming up, we'll be talking about the Great Plague, and now that they've discovered what they think actually caused it, we might actually be able to learn a little bit more about how to stop it happening again. We're going to talk to Vanessa Harding, Professor of London History at Birkbeck. Also, of course, you can call us 0844 499 1000. You're listening to the Two Mikes with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry. Robbie's feeling very full of himself tonight. He says he's predicting 6 out of 10 for the Porky Quiz.
Yeah, good.
He says you can do it, Porky.
I can. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah. Of course I can.
And James says, truly amazing that Mike Parry can remember names of old schoolmates from 1930, but refers to every footballer you speak to as Steve.
No, excuse me. My school days began in 1960. Yes. And, or the 60s, not 1960 itself. in the 60s, and yes, of course, I can remember my friends from those days.
Yeah, I suppose those names are kind of emblazoned on your memory, aren't they?
Can you remember the name of your schoolmates?
I can remember a couple of them, probably, but not in as much detail as you, I don't think.
There was a guy called John Benson, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know why I brought this up, but it's going to say.
I mean, you're not in touch with these people, right?
Oh, no. I've never been to a school reunion. I wouldn't go, because the problem is, if you go, it will just be a kind of, oh, how well have you done? And how well have you done?
Right.
What about this? And some guy might come up to you, like they did at the Daily Express reunion, and say, I've always hated you because of this or something like that.
Very possibly, yeah, something you've already forgotten about.
I'd never bother going. But I went to a prep school, so to speak.
Well, I thought it was a grammar school.
No, before I went to the King's School, Chester.
Did you? What, a private school?
I went to a private school.
Did you? You never told me that.
Well...
You have never revealed that.
Well, I'm not sure it's relevant.
Well, of course it's relevant.
Between the age of 5 and 8, I went to a prep school.
Why?
I don't know, because my dad wanted to send me there. You know, he was a
Did
real
your
snob.
sisters as well?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he was a real snob.
Was he?
I mean, he didn't have any money.
Doesn't surprise me.
Didn't have any money to speak of.
But that was a bit expensive, though, wouldn't it?
It was very expensive.
Yeah.
I, to this day, I've never understood what it was all about.
Right.
I think it was really a sort of a reflection of what he wanted his standing in the world to be, rather than ours. You know what I mean? But I mean, good luck to him. He was a great dad and all that kind of stuff. And so we went to this prep school, and it was in a place called Frodsham in Cheshire.
Yeah.
And he used to drop us off there because he was then working as a salesman in Liverpool for Addis.
But were you not then sort of mingling with lots of people who were much better off than you?
Absolutely. And a lot of them were farmers' sons, because it was Cheshire, the Cheshire Plains and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, in this, and you wore these, very lavish uniforms. It must have been very expensive.
Lavish?
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean lavish?
Well, did you see Wayne Rooney's two sons yesterday?
Yeah.
Their cap on and their blazer, and they're very expensive, all that sort of stuff.
Well, it's still, I mean...
when you buy it times 3.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, we still have to do all that now. I mean, my kids go to a school, they've got to buy a uniform. They've got to buy... I mean, my son's secondary school, not only just buy the uniform, but buy the sports kit.
Oh, yeah, all of
buy
that,
the football kit, buy the rugby kit.
And is that a state school?
That's a state school,
No, well, in those days, the state schools certainly didn't insist on all that, because the poverty factor was still quite high, 20 years after the Second World War and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know. I don't even know. I mean, I afforded it because the three of us. But anyway, the point of the story is, my best mate there was a lad called John Benson.
Uh-huh.
Now, in those days, there was another grammar school around called Helsby Grammar.
Yeah.
And Helsby was halfway between sort of Frodsham and Chester, and it was a great grammar school.
Yeah.
The King's School Chester used to play him at football, and that turned into a comprehensive later. But the point is, when it came to the 11 plus, John and I both went to take it, and you took the 11 plus grammar school entrance exam, but you also took the entrance exam for the King's School Chester.
Yes,
and
so it was a separate exam.
Yeah, it's a separate exam.
Yeah.
And you had to pass both to get in.
Uh-huh.
So I passed both.
Right.
John passed the grammar school. He passed his 11 plus, but he didn't pass the exam to get in the King's School.
Oh, right.
And he ended up at Helsby Grammar.
Uh-huh.
And amazingly, we only ever met once again for the rest of our lives. And that was playing football against each other.
Okay.
Yeah, very odd. Yeah.
Well, I mean, funnily enough, I don't remember whether I had to take an exam to get into the school that I went to. I might have done. But there were people on TV today, one particular socialist type, who was going on about how he was a teacher and how terrible it was that children of 11 were having to take exams because if they didn't pass them, they were scarred for life.
Yes, that's right.
And he said, all you got to do is talk to John Prescott. Apparently John Prescott is scarred for life because he failed his 11 plus and didn't get to go to a grammar school.
John Prescott, of course, famously became a ship's steward.
Yeah.
And they used to shout in the Commons, another gin and tonic here, Varney.
That's right,
and mock him and all that.
Well, he didn't do too badly, did he?
Well, he became the Deputy Prime Minister.
I mean, for somebody who's been scarred for life, I'd say he's done okay.
Yeah, and by the way, I give full credit to John Prescott for literally making a fantastic life for himself, and he really did. In addition to, to becoming big in the union movement, Tony Blair could never let him go because he was the link to the old Labour, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but funny enough, I read in a political diary only today, whose political diary was it? It was Chris Mullins or something like that. He said that John Prescott became two things: Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for the Environment, or something like that, didn't he? Or something.
He was, he was Deputy Prime Minister, and then occasionally for a couple of weeks in the summer, he'd run the country.
That's right, yeah.
And everybody would sort of retract in horror.
And he was found playing polo on the lawn, wasn't he, by a very clever photographer from the Mail on Sunday. He was just
Checkers,
passing.
wasn't it?
It was at Checkers, who just happened to be passing, but went onto a public footpath and thought, wonder if anything's happening.
Yeah.
And saw them all playing polo.
That's right.
Took the pictures. And,
croquet.
And yes, croquet and the man of the people and all that. But anyway, this political diary I read today said, when John Prescott was running a department, he was Deputy Prime Minister, he used to come in, he always looked bloated and tired, and now we know what he was getting up to because, of course, he had an affair with
he did, didn't he?
one of his
staff.
One of his female staff.
Yeah.
And
I've forgotten about that.
Yeah,
it's amazing how many of them get up to no good, isn't it?
You know, they all did, and maybe a lot of them did that we don't even know about. But anyway, so he always looked tired. He used to come in and he used to sort of slope himself on his huge chair with his right leg over the arm of the chair. And then start talking just a load of cobblers, you know, about what are we doing today, what's going on. And every 2 minutes he made a joke. But it wasn't a funny joke. But all the 12 or 13 people from his department who were sitting in front of his desk all had to laugh on cue.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Oh, I know. And dreadful.
Yeah, and that's what it's
dreadful.
about. Yeah.
But maybe that was all down to the fact, I mean, there's still people talking now, even as we speak, on some of these news programmes about how, you know, what a terrible thing it is for kids to be told that they're no good at the age of 10 or 11 because they haven't made the grade to go to a grammar school.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't think that's the way kids actually are. Kids don't feel bad or good about
Rejected
one thing or the other.
Like that.
You go to the school that you get to go to. You don't really think about it at the time. I don't remember having any kind of, you know, particular nerves about it. And if I hadn't gone to the grammar school, I wouldn't have cared.
Well,
it wouldn't have made any difference to me.
I went to the King's School, but all my mates went to Overley Secondary Modern, which we talked about before, and they all did well. One of them became a professional footballer with Arsenal. Yeah. He was a very good footballer. One of them became very good at karate, actually, funny enough. And, you know, he liked the old martial arts and all that. And then one day at his karate club in Chester, he spotted a notice on the wall. Do you want to, you know, apply to become an instructor at an American summer camp for 6 weeks? Right. It would mean, like, taking time off your job. Because he worked at BICC, which was called British Insulated Calendar Cables, in Helsby, where I've just told you about the grammar school, you know. So anyway, he didn't bother going and ask him for 6 weeks off. He thought he applied for the job as the instructor. He got it, and he literally did the old. Went in the next day, told his boss where to go and all that, and he was off.
And emigrated to America.
He never came back.
Really?
He went there on a literally a 6 week martial arts course, and he just stayed.
Yeah.
I mean, for years he was cheating the immigration, all that kind of stuff, you know.
Then he probably got married or something, didn't he?
Well, eventually got the green card and he stayed there, and he built a life there with a fleet of stretch limos, actually, serving people over in Nevada, you know, Las Vegas and Reno and all that kind of stuff.
Well, there was loads of opportunities to do that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Absolutely right. Dickie says this. It's said that listening to radio stimulates the mind as much as reading. Much great knowledge absorbed tonight. He says he's loving it.
Yeah, good.
Rob has noticed that the word bladderated seems to have cropped up into the Sun crossword.
Yes, it has, actually.
Have you seen that?
Yeah. And bladderation has been used in another text which somebody sent me just the other day. Yeah. Which means that we do have influence on the way people talk in this country.
Well, we do. We have invented quite a few words. Plank is another one, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is.
Which I've called you from time to time.
Yeah, which is a bit unfair.
Ian says this. No way. I had an Ask Porky queued up to settle a bet on how you pronounce Frodsham, and he pronounced it the proper way. Right. Frodsham is correct, isn't it?
Well, which other way can you pronounce it?
Well, I don't know. Is it spelled Frodsham?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Frodsham.
And funny enough, there's this is quite interesting as well. Just behind the school I went to there was a hill, and it was called Frodsham and Helsby Hill. Right. And on the top there was like a weather vane, which looked like, believe it or not, it looked like a helter-skelter. That's the way it was built and that kind of stuff. And one of the guys at the school there, one day, had a terrible row with his parents or something, and he ran off. And they found him living in the weather vane, 2 days later, and up the hill and all that kind of stuff. No, it was a big hill.
Very strange.
People just go walking.
How very strange. Now, coming up, we're going to speak to Vanessa Harding about this business of DNA testing has for the first time confirmed the identity of the bacteria that caused so many deaths. Good. Have they not also uncovered a place where they think more people were buried as well?
Well, I think there's a load of those, isn't there, with these sort of mass burial sites and all that kind of stuff. I mean, Gravesend's not the only one, is it?
No, I don't think it is. No. But I thought I read the other day that actually they've uncovered a couple of new sites that they previously didn't know existed.
Okay, fine. By the way, I saw a picture in London Evening Standard tonight. It's quite funny. I don't know why I'm laughing at this, but there's a river somewhere in sort of Siberia, right? And it's gotten overnight from being a normal river that's sort of whitish or blue to raspberry red.
Oh, God.
And the authorities are denying it's got anything to do with the nuclear processing factory up the road.
Well, of course it's got nothing to do with that.
It's
absolutely no chance.
But honestly, the picture of it's like a blood river,
Oh, God. Well, hopefully it's not anybody living anywhere near it.
Well, I don't know. I hope they don't draw the water from it, because if they do, they'll have two heads tomorrow.
Yeah, they certainly will. Not a very good idea. Coming up, we'll be talking to Vanessa Harding, Professor of London History at Birkbeck. She's going to tell us what they've been discovering about the Great Plague. We are the two mics. The Porky Quiz is coming up very shortly as well. So my prediction is 3 out of 10 stands. Some of you think Porky will do better than that, 5, possibly 6, maybe even 7, because the subject is, of course, a historical one, which he claims to be an expert in, and that is the great British Prime Ministers of the United Kingdom from 1945 to the present day. Coming up very shortly, though, we'll be talking about the Great Plague as well. Vanessa Harding, Professor of London History at Birkbeck College, University of London. Got a few more tweets to read out.
Yes.
Monty says this: I went to grammar school, but except when attempting to teach me a foreign language, nobody ever tried to teach me any grammar. I think he's trying to be a bit whimsical there.
Yeah, a bit whimsical, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Bob says, waiting eagerly to hear what a history professor has to say about rat DNA. When was history a natural science?
Yes.
Well, I mean, what they've found, right, is that they've been able to somehow work out what the rat DNA, or what the DNA of some of the people that died was, I think, in terms of what the actual bacteria was that infected them in the first place.
That's right, absolutely.
And Rob says, haha, is that the same King's School in Chester where you were the school diving champion, Porky?
I wasn't a diving champion, actually, although we did have a swimming pool. No other school in Chester had a swimming pool. We had a swimming pool.
Did you have diving, though? Did you have a diving sort of, teacher?
No, because the swimming pool wasn't deep enough. It went from 3 feet to 6 feet, and that was it.
Yeah.
There wasn't a diving pool.
Oh, really?
In fact, you weren't allowed to dive, actually.
Oh.
I think they had a diving board in the deep end, but, I mean, you weren't actually allowed to sort of, dive from
How often
30
would you be able to use the swimming pool, though?
Every night.
Really?
Because what you used to do...
after school?
Yeah, because we used to go and do football training every night, right? Because I was in the first 11, and I was a superstar, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
By comparison.
Uh-huh.
And I'm talking about now about the lighter months. So, when you got back in August, September, even maybe October.
Yeah.
And then when you finished training, you went and had a shower, and then you could have a swim.
Uh-huh.
And then you come out the pool and had another shower, and then sort of went home.
So quite a privileged upbringing you had there.
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
Well, see, mine wasn't. My grammar school was in the middle heart of London.
Yes.
And in fact, we had playing fields, which were down by Twickenham.
Right.
Which we used to go down. And they've now become
How did you get there?
Yeah, coach.
Oh, I see.
They've now become a parking lot for Twickenham Rugby Stadium.
Disgraceful.
Because it was literally right. You could see it.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
When Twickenham wasn't that much of a thing.
Yeah, the old Twickenham Stadium, which was a bit of a wreck, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was. Yeah, exactly right. Here's one from Don, who says, the joy of the two mics is the feeling that you are earwigging a private conversation between two long-term friends.
Oh, really?
Do you think that sounds right?
Well, I suppose
long-term friends is stretching it, isn't it?
Yeah, it could be something in that.
I mean, we've known each other a long time.
Yes.
So I don't know about long-term friends.
Exactly. Yes.
No, absolutely right. So, what are you up to this weekend? Anyway, I thought I might ask you that.
Well, I have a lunch tomorrow, which I've got to sort out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Which
a lunch that you've been invited to?
A lunch that I've initiated, actually.
Oh, really?
Yes, to meet some rather useful sort of people.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You haven't invited me to that, though?
No. Well, I said useful people, you know what I mean?
Oh, I see.
Yeah, exactly.
So after all that nonsense you gave me last week about not being invited to that do that I went to in Kensington, you're now hosting a lunch which I'm not invited to. Just to set the record straight,
Well, the point is, this is all about the development of things we do. So I'm meeting somebody about a new website tomorrow, actually.
Oh, right.
And also, I will be, at some stage of the day, talking to people who are putting together our next Two Mics video.
Indeed, absolutely right. Yeah, that's going to be exciting.
Should be exciting.
Should be out in time for Christmas.
Oh, we'll be out in plenty of time for Christmas.
Let's talk to Vanessa Harding, Professor of London History at Birkbeck, University of London, because the big story today, which people got quite excited about, is all because of a Crossrail dig, funnily enough.
Yes.
So when people say, what good is Crossrail? It's just holding up all the traffic.
Yes.
Actually, they've found quite a lot of interesting stuff underneath the pavements of London.
Excellent.
Vanessa, a very good evening to you.
Hello.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much indeed.
It does strike me that, when people do moan and groan about Crossrail, basically an awful lot of the things that have been found in the last couple of years beneath the streets of London have been as a result of the digging around for Crossrail, haven't they?
Yes, indeed. Yes. It's offered an amazing opportunity to get at sites and areas we wouldn't otherwise have seen.
And they found this new sort of burial ground, didn't they? The Bedlam burial ground, I think, the new churchyard in East London. And is that what was able to give you the opportunity to then do further work on the bacteria?
Yes, it isn't that they didn't know it was there. They always knew it was there, but it gave them an opportunity to excavate much more of it than has ever been done before.
Right.
And that at least some of the skeletons were in a sufficient state of preservation for them to be able to send elements, largely teeth, for DNA analysis at the Max Planck Institute.
Why do we need, Vanessa, to find out, what the plague was all about? It was a very long time ago, and, hopefully, unfortunately, that sort of thing will never afflict modern society. So why are you so interested, Professor, in finding what it was all about and where it all came from?
Well, I think there are two answers to that. One is that epidemiologists are really interested to know more about plague because it still exists. It's still around in the modern world.
Right.
And that evidence from the past, particularly evidence about how it behaved and who it killed and what its incidence was, could be very useful to that.
Yes.
But as a historian of London, I'm really interested to understand more about the city's past and to know what it was that was going on there.
Do we know where it came? Do we know where it came from, Professor? I mean, I was musing earlier on. Trade had expanded around the world, and ships were coming back from places in the Far East with rats on and all that kind of stuff. I mean,
yes, it's almost certain that plague originates in sort of Central Asia. Yeah. What's less clear is whether that it just arrived once or whether it arrived again and again, causing a series of different epidemics. What's important about this new discovery is that it links up the 1665 plague, which is the last great plague in London, in Britain, and in northwest Europe, with the Black Death of the 14th century, so that we now have a sense that it's the same pathogen operating over a long period of time.
Wow. And what do we know about exactly why it became so widespread in the time that it did? I mean, have you learned anything new on that front?
I don't think you learn that from archaeology. That's the sort of thing you try to work with historical documents to find out. But we can trace, for example, the way it fans out from London to other centres, the way it's clearly related to trade and trade routes, but the exact transmission route isn't always very clear.
But in terms of like the speed of infection and the sheer numbers as well.
Well, that's what's very striking, is that the way it seems to have operated in the historical past is not identical to the way in which it operates in the present.
Right.
It seems to have spread faster and killed more people in the past than it does now. That's quite apart from antibiotics and ways of treating it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Now, Professor, a question I'm going to ask you, which you may not be able to answer. I'm living in London during these days, 1665, and I don't know whether I'm going to get the plague or not. A, was there any way you could do anything to guarantee you didn't get the plague? And B, why didn't everybody just leave London and go to the Shires to get away from it?
Well, the answer to the first question is the best thing you can possibly do for yourself is get away from London. Everybody seems to agree that the court, the rich, the wealthy, they will leave London if they possibly can. But the reason that everybody didn't leave is that people have to make a living. They don't have second homes to go to.
Sure.
And they can't afford to lose their livelihoods.
Yeah,
let alone the fact that the countryside is not going to be that keen to have people who might be bringing the disease.
Yeah. No, I see. They'd be ostracised if they went to sort of hamlets and
you
villages.
Wouldn't fancy it if you were living in somewhere like Oxford and suddenly all these people from London turned up.
No,
you can imagine. I mean,
absolutely.
I agree.
It wouldn't be very popular.
But is there any evidence as to who was most vulnerable for it? I mean, were more women than men killed? Were more women in childbirth or anything like that?
It's hard to say. It probably hits males and females equally. It may have been worse for younger people, but it's always difficult to add up the numbers. I mean, the numbers are enormous, and we don't always know. We can't always break them down by age and sex, as they say.
Yes, I say, yeah.
And as far as the skeletons that were found, it was about something like 3,500 people were buried in this sort of mass grave. Were you surprised? I mean, was it unusual that they were as well preserved as they were?
Well, what was very striking was that the ones that they sent the teeth for analysis, that those were well preserved, and that complete skeletons. And this is interesting. It's because they were buried in coffins in a fairly orderly fashion.
Right.
So, the traditional idea that during the plague the dead are just thrown into pits and left seems to be completely contradicted by this. That they went on burying them carefully and orderly, even though they were burying them in large pits rather than single graves.
I mean, didn't they think about burning the corpses, for fear that, there's a lot of ignorance around in those days?
Well, they might have started a fire.
Yeah, well, exactly. It was as far as London, wasn't it? But you know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah, I think the answer is that if a terrible disaster strikes, people really want to hold on to things they think are important.
Right.
And that, burial of the dead, care of the dead body is something that's a universal in human societies.
Yes.
We still find it shocking when dead people or dead bodies are not treated with some kind of care and respect.
Yes.
So I think if you're feeling the hand of pestilence on the city, then one of the things you think, we can still at least treat the dead properly. And particularly, it's a very religious time, and that many people believe this was a judgment from God.
Right.
So that, one of the things you don't do under those circumstances.
Yeah, no, that's interesting,
Yeah.
And also, looking at some of the stories that have been written about this in the last few days, there was a couple of headstones found as well, even though most of the victims were sort of unidentified, as it were. What would have that been about?
Well, the burial ground is actually in use for nearly a couple of hundred years. And so it isn't all plague victims who were buried there. It's on the outskirts of the city, as it then was, and it is somewhere that the city centre parishes use when they have more bodies that they can bury in their local churchyard. Right. But it's an ordinary burial ground for a lot of its history.
Okay.
I see,
and are you expecting to get any more kind of interesting data out of this find, as it were, or are people still looking at more DNA or what? I'm
not sure about that. I think there is. I'm sure there is more to be found out from these particular bodies and from particular analysis of them, but one of the things about analysis is you don't quite know what you're going to find.
Sure. Exactly right.
And just finally, Professor, I mean, there was a lot of ignorance around in those days. Was there a campaign against any particular sect of society who may have brought the plague to London? For instance, the Great Fire of London, a lot of people said it was the Dutch spies or the French spies. Was any class of person blamed for bringing the plague?
Yes, they tend to blame the poor. The poor and beggars and the disorderly and the kind of people who go to ale houses. Yeah. Anything that seems to be both morally and physically or socially disorderly.
Well, hang on. I go to ale houses and, I don't regard myself as a bad person.
I'm sure you don't, but at the time they felt that, well, maybe this is one of the sins that is causing this judgment upon us.
Yeah, well, I can see
Well, I mean,
that,
times don't change very much, really, do they? I don't wish to get too philosophical about it, but there we are.
Exactly, yeah.
Vanessa, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Yes,
thanks.
thank you very much indeed.
Vanessa Harding, Professor of London History at Birkbeck, University of London.
And incidentally, we were talking about John Prescott earlier.
Yes.
He actually graduated from...
The Birkbeck?
Birkbeck University.
Did he?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
Birkbeck University, as far as I understand it, is...
I thought he went to the one in Oxford. It was the one where trade union people got sent.
That's the one, I'm sure.
No, I think there's one in Oxford, which has got another name.
Well, it might be a college of Birkbeck, if you see what I mean.
Well, Birkbeck's part of the University of London, though.
Yeah, I know, but I thought that's the one he
No, it might
went
be.
to.
It might be, but we
anyway.
shall check that out.
Coming
up.
I thought that Birkbeck had a high proportion of, older students, what they call mature students.
Mature students, yeah. Well, a lot of the trade unions put their people through those kind of places, but I think there's one in Oxford.
Yeah.
But we'll mention that coming up soon. Coming up next, though, it's the Porky Quiz. You must recognise that piece of music.
Of course. Yes, Prime Minister.
Yes, Prime Minister.
Or Yes, Minister.
Or Yes, Minister.
As it was first.
Well, it has been suggested that this quiz could be actually called Prime Minister's Questions.
Well, okay, there you go.
Because it is, of course, questions about Prime Ministers.
Yeah, quite like that.
Would you go for that?
Yeah, go for that, yeah.
Well, and you say that you've been researching this and not needing to research too much because of your
not
vast
research
knowledge.
Too much.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I've got 10 questions here.
Excellent.
Some of which you
and
may
I hope
find
there's
easy.
only one list of questions, by the way.
There's always only
you
one
were
list
quite
of questions.
shocked last night when we were talking to the historical professor about Clem Attlee, and you realised how much I knew about these things, okay?
Well, I wasn't particularly shocked. I wouldn't say that. But what I did say was when you launched into this kind of monologue about what you knew about it and reeled off all these facts, I just said to you that you might want to be careful not to give too much away because the independent quizmasters obviously wouldn't want to ask you a question that you'd already exhibited knowledge on.
I'm not calculating like that.
No, of course not. As usual, though, the independent quizmasters have put together 10 questions which all have answers. It's not multiple choice. If you get one correct, you will hear this sound.
Excellent.
You'd like that, wouldn't you?
Yes, that's a yay in the House of Commons.
Yeah, and if you get one wrong, you'll hear this sound. Okay.
Okay, good.
Are you ready for question number one?
Certainly am.
Question number one. Harold Wilson became Prime Minister for the third time in March 1974. When did he call the next election for?
He didn't, because what happened was he did 2 years as Prime Minister in that administration and then stepped down for reasons that have never really been found out, and James Callaghan took over.
Incorrect.
No.
He called another election in October 1974 because the one that he won in March 1974 was actually a hung parliament.
That's right.
And it was the shortest parliament since 1681.
Yes, it was.
And he won with a majority of 3 in October.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, that question's invalid.
No, it's not.
It is, because...
He called another election.
No, it's invalid.
You said he didn't.
No, you misled me. That was his second administration, not his third.
No, it was his third.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, it was.
The third was when he won that election he called. That was his second administration.
The question was, when did he call another election?
No, that was his second. You said it was his third administration. I'm sorry, it's an invalid question.
No, it's not. 0
invalid. Completely invalid.
Question number 2. Who took over as Prime Minister when Winston Churchill retired due to ill health in 1955?
In 1955, that was Anthony Eden.
Correct.
Thank you.
I'll give you that, even though you didn't say Sir Anthony Eden, which is technically the correct answer.
Yes.
Question number 3. Yes. Clement Attlee was credited with bringing in the National Health Service during his administration.
Yes.
Whose report recommended it?
It was recommended by Anarian Bevan.
You see, because I told you about Anarian Bevan last night, you just didn't know anything about.
I knew all about it.
You think you get it. It's unfortunately not the correct answer.
What?
No. I knew you'd do that. I knew you'd fall for that one. It's Sir William Beveridge, Chairman of the Ministry of Health Committee. It's known as the Beveridge Report.
Rubbish.
Very, very well-known report.
Is he the man who invented the word bevy?
No, he's not. It's a different spelling, actually. Question number 4. Right. Edward Heath called an election following industrial unrest and a 3-day week in 1974.
Yes.
What was his slogan?
His slogan was now the slogan of his opponent Harold Wilson was "Make Britain Work" or something like that. I mean, what Edward Heath basically his campaign slogan was: "Who's running the country? Is it the government or the unions?" So,
well, what was the slogan? I need the slogan.
The slogan?
Yeah.
Well,
that's not a slogan. That's a bumbled collection of words.
The slogan was Edward Heath's slogan. You're talking about?
Yeah, the slogan of the election campaign.
Right. 1974.
I mean, you're on the right track.
Yeah.
Okay?
1974.
At the moment, I'd say you're on half a point. But
Yeah. The slogan was. It was. Let me just think. Because I met him actually in Ellesmere Port while he was campaigning.
Well, I didn't ask you that. You don't get any points for meeting him.
And his slogan was. Yes, I know what it was.
Go on.
Who runs the country?
Incorrect.
No.
But I'll give you half a point.
Right.
Because it was who governs Britain.
Oh, come on. I said who runs the country.
I said I want the slogan.
Who runs the country?
Yeah, but I want the slogan. That's like saying, Britain is out of work instead of Britain isn't working, which was the other slogan, which is very important.
Crikey. I mean, that,
half a point.
The mission statement was who runs Britain.
Who governs Britain was the slogan.
Who governs Britain, yeah.
Question number 5.
Right.
What is Margaret Thatcher's middle name?
Margaret Thatcher's middle name? Margaret Thatcher. Now, her dad was a grocer in Grantham, okay?
No points for that.
Just thinking aloud.
All right.
And she was a single child. And she had 2 children, Mark and her daughter, Thatcher. She was a journalist. Used to meet her, by the way, in the wine press in Fleet Street. Yeah, she sat on the stool there.
Right. What was her name?
Her name was Thatcher. Actually, I can't remember now, but...
well, I can't help
famous,
you. Unless they're connected.
Right. So Margaret Thatcher's middle name
was her middle name?
Margaret.
I'll have to hurry you.
I think she had something in common with the Queen. I think it was Margaret Elizabeth Thatcher.
Incorrect.
No.
It was Hilda.
Hilda. It was Hilda.
And her daughter was Carol.
Carol
Thatcher.
Yeah. I remember Carol. Yeah.
Question number 6. Right. Who was Thatcher's first deputy prime minister?
Thatcher's first deputy prime minister?
Yes.
Now, I'm thinking aloud here.
Okay.
Thinking aloud here. She once made the profound statement that every prime minister needs a Willie. And she was talking about Willie Whitelaw, who was her deputy prime minister at the height of her powers. Now, her first one, when she first moved in and stood on the steps of Downing Street and announced, she read that famous poem, about, what it's about, don't you?
What?
Oh, the poem she read on Downing Street, and she needed to have her teeth done, actually, afterwards, because her teeth didn't look too good. And, no, seriously. And, where there is division, we will bring joy, all that kind of stuff,
all that, yeah.
And her first deputy prime minister... I believe was... I think it was... I'm not sure if it was Willie Whitelaw from the start.
Well, you'll have to choose somebody quickly.
Yeah, OK. You see, it could have been the the big brain guy, Sir Keith Joseph. He was very influential with her. I'm going to say Willie Whitelaw.
Correct.
Yes, thank
You got there in the end.
Thank you.
Question number 7.
Yes.
When did Gordon Brown officially resign as Prime Minister? I need a date.
What do you mean you need a date?
I need a date.
What, the actual day?
Yeah, I need the date, yeah.
Don't be ridiculous.
Well, you can't just give me a year. You need to give me the day and the month and the year. If you don't...
I'll give you the month.
Go on then.
That was May.
Uh-huh.
And that was May of when David Cameron took over. That was... Hang on, I'm trying to work out the election timetable. 97, and then there was another one in 2001, 2005, 2009. It was. No, he got in 10, didn't he? 10 to 15. Right. Okay. Now that election was in 15. So.
You're taking an awful lot of time.
10.
I'm sure you haven't written any of this stuff down somewhere.
No.
You're looking off in various directions.
Right. It was definitely May 2010.
Okay. And what date?
It was the third Thursday of May 2010.
I'll give you that.
What?
It was May the 11th.
Thank you.
May the 11th, 2010.
Thank you.
Not at all.
Hey.
You've now already beaten my projection, which is 3.5 out of 10 at the moment.
Absolutely.
Number 8. Tony Blair was elected in 1997 as the youngest Prime Minister since whom?
Pitt the Younger.
Incorrect.
No.
It's Lord Liverpool.
Lord Liverpool?
In 1812, yeah.
Lord Liverpool?
Same as the Overture.
Well, I tell you what, Pitt was younger than Lord Liverpool, but Pitt came before Lord Liverpool, you see.
So therefore
that
Lord
was
Liverpool...
a trick question.
Well, it's not a trick. It says
trick
since
question.
whom. Question number 9.
Pitt the Younger was the youngest ever Prime Minister. He was 23.
Well, what year was that?
1774.
Well, the last one was 1812.
Yeah,
so
well, you see,
it's
that was a
perfectly
trick
correct
question.
Not a trick question. Question number 9.
Yes.
When did Tony Blair become leader of the opposition?
Leader of the opposition?
Yes.
Right.
Another date I was required.
Yes, okay. Now, what happened was, let me tell you, the leader of opposition was John Smith, who was a dour Scottish barrister who believed that God had blessed him with eventually becoming leader of the Labour Party and Prime Minister. Now, he died of a heart attack after a very boozy late-night party.
Well, that's rather unfortunate that you should bring that up.
Well,
he died
of
of a heart attack.
That's the truth. Yeah. Now this happened. I told you this happened. Now let me tell you the. Now Blair got elected first time in 97.
Yep.
And he became leader of the opposition after John Smith died. Because John Major won surprisingly the election after Mrs. Thatcher had been deposed. Everybody was amazed about that. That must have been in 92. So I think. Yeah, okay. I think John Smith died and Blair took over in 1994.
Okay, I'll give you half a point for
that.
Can you give me a month?
Yes. I think it was... July.
Correct.
Yay!
I'll give you that. I won't bother asking for the date because the 21st of July I wouldn't expect you to know. That's very good.
Yes.
Final question. Question number 10.
Yes.
Where was current Prime Minister Theresa May born?
Theresa May was born in... Let me see. Now, it was definitely in the north of England, right? Her father was a vicar. So, let me just think. She was born... See, you've always got the image of Mrs. Thatcher in her shop in Lincolnshire.
She was in Grantham, wasn't she?
Grantham, yeah. So, now then, I should know this, I should know this. Theresa May, born and brought up in... do you know what? I think it was Cheshire, because she went to grammar school and she went to Oxford University, so it was somewhere... Right, I think it was Derbyshire.
Incorrect.
No.
She was born in Eastbourne, actually.
Where?
Eastbourne.
Eastbourne?
Yes. Not in the north of England at all. Right. October the 1st, 1956.
Okay.
So she's not dissimilar in age to you.
Yes, exactly.
Funnily enough. That's not bad,
she's
though.
a lot older than me.
1, 2, 3, 4.5 out of 10.
No.
That's what you got.
Should be more than that.
Well, it shouldn't be. I think I was very generous.
I got Pitt the Younger.
Yeah, Peter Younger wasn't the right answer.
Well, anyway, that's a pretty good score in my
I would say 4.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
A bit more than I thought you'd get.
Yeah.
But the questions were very fair. I think you'll agree.
Questions are okay. We're okay, yeah.
So you got nothing to complain about.
No, not complaining too much.
So still less than 50% on a subject to which you claim to be an expert.
Yeah, but that, in a degree situation, that would have got me a first-class degree, that.
What, 4.5 out of 10?
No, 50%, and you're there.
50% does not get you a first-class degree.
I was nearly there.
No, you don't get a first-class degree.
I thought it was a brilliant performance, actually.
Do you?
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay, well, we'll find out what the listeners think, I'm sure. You can tweet us at the two mics.
Yes.
This is Talk Radio.
Yes.
We are the two mics. We've got one more hour coming up, and it's going to be a belter of an hour, of course. We're going to be talking to Jasmine Milton, who's the owner of a very attractive, some would say, Siberian Husky called Anuko.
Indeed.
Who's got a very grumpy face, though.
He has, yeah.
And she's making a fortune out of it, surprisingly enough. But we'll get into that a little bit later on. But a very interesting, got some good reaction on your quiz answers.
Yes.
But also, let me read you this from John in Gravesend.
Yes.
He says, Dear two mics, I hope you're both well. Enjoy the show. I heard you both saying that Gravesend was a burial site for the plague. I just wanted to say this is a common misconception, as the area is actually mentioned in the Doomsday Book as Gravesham. There is no record as to the origin of the name Gravesend, but it could be to do with the market being established at the borough of Gravesham at the end, which led to the development of a market settlement.
Right.
Best regards, John from Gravesend. He said, P.S. Are you both coming to do a show at the Woodville Halls, by the way?
Where, in Gravesend?
In Gravesend.
No.
Why not?
Well, because we...
Why not?
I've never heard of it.
Well, why would you suddenly dismiss it out of hand?
Well, because,
That's not very nice.
No, but it's very kind of John to contact us. Thank you very much indeed. However... history is inconclusive.
All right. Brian says this, Porky, I'm quite disappointed with your score. I expected you to get 7 answers right. Review harder next time.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not. Now, I've got one here which just about sums it all up. It says, this is from Martin. He sums it up brilliantly. You see, your disgraceful tactics.
Oh, yeah.
He says, MG just said, I knew you'd fall for that one. That, to me, Porky, is evidence of premeditated gerrymandering.
Why?
Well, because you teased me into giving you the wrong answer.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No, because until last night, you'd never heard of an Iron Bevan, right? And when I told you about an Iron Bevan, I thought, for example, when I saw that question on the Quizmaster's collection of questions, I thought you're bound to say an Iron Bevan.
Yeah.
And that's why I said I'm sure you'd fall for that.
Yeah, exactly. So you set me up.
No, I did not set you up. That question just happened to be provided by the independent quizmasters.
Oh, yeah.
Omar says, looks like you put the big squeeze on the Porkster MG by asking for exact dates, but I give him credit, an admirable job done.
Thank you very much.
Pete says, good effort, Porky, 4.5 more than expected.
Well, exactly. And the point is that in addition to the marks that I get, right, which I have to fight tooth and nail for because of your duplicity, people are so impressed about my knowledge around the answer. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, but you see, but you don't get extra points for that.
No, but it doesn't matter when I explain to people what happened to Harold Wilson, that he stepped down and James Callaghan stepped up and all that kind of. People are very impressed with my overall knowledge.
Okay, Johnny says 50%, which you didn't even get, would have got you a 2-2.
Yeah, 2-2 degree.
Failure.
Yeah, that's all right. To settle for that. Yeah.
And you see, this is how you get people wound up, because the more rather stupid people think that they believe that there's more than one set of questions.
Yes.
There's one from Callie's Disco.
Yeah.
As soon as Porky got on a roll, MG brings out the second set of questions.
Exactly.
Did you see a second set of questions?
Well, I can't see your screen. I don't know what you're doing, and I don't know.
There is no second set of questions. There's only ever one set of questions.
Yeah.
And Robbie says, well done, Porky. Very good try, but if you're not winning, you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah, well,
I
accept with that. And Azza here says, they don't call you the chess oracle for nothing, Porky, and that's absolutely true,
Yes, exactly right. Now, did you see that story earlier on today about the nightclub they're shutting down?
It's amazing, this.
As a result, it's called Fabric, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Never been there?
And I think... No, I've never been there. Have you been there?
Been there, no.
It's in London, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Now, the strangest thing is that the Mayor of London, whose name is Sadiq Khan...
Sadiq Khan, yes.
Yeah, who's just won some
relatively
awards.
new leader.
You wouldn't believe it, but some local newspaper had a poll of who's the most important Londoner.
Yes.
And funny enough, they named Sadiq Khan, who happens to be the Mayor of London. You know what I mean?
Funnily enough, there was a tweet earlier on today as well from somebody called Parry, who says, after MG slagging him off on yesterday's show, put that in your pipe and smoke it, because Charles was named by the same paper, Prince Charles, as Londoner of the Decade.
That's right, yeah. Sadiq Khan was named, like, most important Londoner
he doesn't even live in London most of the time.
No, he doesn't, no.
How does he get to be Londoner of the Decade?
Well, it'll be all about those carbuncles and things we talked about. Anyway, listen, let's get back to this. So this club has closed down, and it's basically because 2 people, allegedly, have died after being at that club, and it's thought they've died as a result of an alleged drug culture.
Yes,
okay,
right.
So the club's been closed down. Now, Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, has joined top DJs and legions of fans, this is a report I'm reading, in condemning the decision by Islington Council to revoke Fabric's licence at a heated committee meeting that ran into the small hours yesterday.
Yeah.
Now, I don't quite get this. I mean...
Well, what don't you get?
Well, if somebody goes to a nightclub and ends up dead, and they link his death to factors that are concerned with the nightclub.
What, you mean that the nightclub has some control over?
Yes.
Right.
Then you've got to close the nightclub, in my view.
Well, I don't know why, because, I mean, people take drugs, and people take drugs in all kinds of scenarios, right?
Yeah.
I mean, somebody posted something on Facebook today suggesting that they might consider shutting down the Dorchester because somebody died there from a cocaine overdose. It was some kind of Arab prince.
Well, let me move this to you. This is called the Super Club, by the way.
Yeah.
Apparently it draws visitors literally from all over the world.
Right.
So, you know, if, like, a group of guys in, say, Romford want to go for a stag weekend to Czechoslovakia, to Prague or something like that, on a pile on the plane.
Right.
Apparently, like princes from the Middle East and all that, when they want a stag weekend, they literally get onto a private plane, they come to London, they go to Fabric.
Right.
That's how...
Well, not anymore, I guess.
Well, no, that's how big a club it is. But anyway, it says the move to close the Super Club came in response to the deaths of 2 teenagers in the summer just past, or the summer we're still in, after taking the Class A drug MDMA.
Okay.
And that's an indisputable fact, apparently.
Right.
But people who support
But it's
the
not
club,
clear whether they got the drug in the club or whether they brought the drug in with them.
Not at all.
Right.
And people saying this is a heavy-handed response, you know, 2 individuals
it does seem
amongst
a little bit,
tens of thousands who use this
club.
club.
Well, it does
seem
a bit over the top. I mean, I was watching a report on it earlier on, and they had a guy, I think, from the club saying, you know, if you close the club down, it doesn't stop people taking drugs. They'll just take the drugs somewhere else.
Yeah.
And they say that one of the things that they had inside the club were, you know, a medical personnel, so that if anybody does suffer from some kind of problem, that there's people inside the club to look after them. And I mean, you know, it's a bit ridiculous to blame the club, I think, unless they are being willfully you know, not noticing people selling drugs in there. I mean, it's one thing if they're selling drugs in there, in which case you shut it down. But if they're not, then why not just let it stay open?
Well, the 2 unfortunate victims, Jack Crosley, 18, died after collapsing outside Fabric on August the 6th. So that's pretty recent.
Yeah.
And Ryan Brown, also 18, died after taking drugs at Fabric on June the 26th, leading to a suspension of the club's licence. Now, the commercial aspect of this is this, right? This club is so big that if people can't go to there, they're worried that the club set on block will push off to Barcelona, or push off to Berlin, or something like that. Yeah. Apparently, this
maybe they'll just go to another club, though.
Well, no, because other clubs are feeling the pinch as well. They say that, you know, clubs are under terrible threat these days. The smoking ban has had a huge effect on nightclubs because... Well, we've had it, actually, when we've done shows and all that. Sometimes you want a cigarette, you've got to walk 5 minutes to get a...
You've got to go out the fire door or something.
And sometimes you've got to go way off the campus, let alone the actual club itself, you know what I mean? All that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
So that's one. The second point is that increasingly magistrates have been reluctant to issue very late licences because... You know, we had this story we did a couple of weeks ago. They've closed down a pub and built flats. Flats now are everywhere in the West End. Yeah. So if you're a flat dweller, you can apply to the local authority to withdraw the licence of the club next door because they disturb you at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
Well, I mean, it's not only that. There's a pub not very far from this office, isn't there, where you can go and have a drink up until 11 o'clock at night. But it's in a very residential street.
That's right. Yeah.
And although it's a very nice pub and the people that go there are relatively civilised, there's only a very small area where you can stand outside, and you're not allowed to stand around the corner.
No, you're not.
And when we were there the other week, every time you went around the corner today to have a cigarette with a drink, the guy would come out and say, "No, you can't stand here."
Yeah, go away.
Because, I mean, they were being quite nice about it, but
That's
they said,
right.
look, the problem is people will complain and they'll shut us down.
That's right, absolutely.
Which is mad, really. I mean, if you live in a street where there happens to be a pub, then surely you have to expect that there's going to be a little bit of, noise going on outside.
You move into the street knowing there's a pub there. It's a bit like moving into a house underneath the flight way to Heathrow Airport.
Or next to a railway line.
Exactly. Now then, a guy called Cameron Leslie, who co-founded Fabric in 1999, so it's been going like 17 years.
That's a long time for a nightclub.
It certainly is. So the club had a pioneering confiscation procedure to tackle drug use and work closely with police. And supporters have also criticised the council for referencing an undercover police operation that cited sweating, glazed red eyes and staring into space amongst many club users.
Well, that's a big surprise,
used to happen
isn't
to
it?
me, and I wasn't taking drugs.
Well, that's a big surprise, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, there used to
exactly.
be a couple of places, not very far from here, up near London Bridge, which were known to be, for example, clubs where they didn't have a licence, but they would open all night and sometimes through the next day because the people that were going in there were all taking ecstasy.
Is that
and
right?
Everybody knew about it. The police knew about it. They never shut them down.
Kids take ecstasy all over the world.
No.
Now, were you a big fan of nightclubs in your youth?
Well, I wasn't particularly. No.
I loved discos.
No.
I loved discos.
You see, growing up in London,
I was a disco king.
Growing up in London, it wasn't like necessarily the thing to do, really.
No,
because I mean, there was a period of time when I was hanging around with the guy that ran the bakery.
Yes,
he would take when I was 14. He took me to my first nightclub.
Right,
and he took me to what was it? The gas lamp, I think.
The gaslight?
The gaslight, yeah. The gaslight. And we went there, and then we went to another place somewhere around the back of Leicester Square.
And were you consuming alcohol?
Yeah.
This is disgraceful.
And I only looked about 10.
What did your parents think? Were you turn up at home bladderated at 2 in the morning?
They didn't seem too bothered about it, really.
Really?
Yeah.
Bad parenting.
We used to go, he had a driver, and he had a Rolls Royce. And we used to go, it was him and me and a couple of other guys and my sister.
It's a bit weird, isn't it?
I don't know. I can't imagine letting my own kids do it,
No,
to be
exactly,
honest.
that's what I'm saying.
But I had a great time.
But
I remember ordering a tequila sunrise in this nightclub.
Yeah.
Which
14?
had tables, and they had tables, and it was a very colourful tequila sunrise
bohemian, that is,
with like umbrellas and everything in it.
Yeah.
And of course there was a drag artist on the stage who kept making fun of me.
Yeah.
But he didn't say anything about the fact that I looked so young.
Oh.
Well, it just was bizarre. I'll tell you more about it in a minute. Good evening, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to the Two Mikes. We've had the Porky Quiz, of course, 4.5 out of 10, not a bad score for Mr. Parry. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be talking to Jasmine Milton, who owns a grumpy dog called Anuko, who's helped her make something in the region of £20,000 already, because people love the way he looks so much. We've got much more coming up as well, and you can find us on Twitter at the Two Mikes, at Mike Parry 8 and at IROMG. You're listening to the Two Mikes with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry. Now, Omar has sent in a letter that he's found in a magazine, and he's asking if you've been out shopping lately, because the letter says, it sounds as though it's been written by somebody in Surrey, but not from your name. Whilst visiting my local supermarket, I was disgusted to find the best parking spaces nearest the door are now reserved for so-called parent and child parking.
That's right.
If these people are fit enough to procreate and produce offspring in the first place, they should jolly well be able to walk across a car park into the supermarket.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Sounds exactly like something you would say.
I totally agree.
But it's not actually from your pen, is it?
No, I totally agree. But by the way, I use those all the time. And whenever I've been asked, where's your children, all that, I say they're still in the store.
What do you mean you use them all the time?
I use them all the time.
Why?
You can't prove that you're not a parent with a child.
Well, you can if you haven't got a child with you.
No, you can't. No.
Well, that's outrageous.
No, it's not.
Well, no wonder poor parents who have to try and get their children out of cars with spaces too small.
Yeah.
Because people like you are taking
Right, can I tell you?
up.
There's usually about 10 spaces for mother and toddler, whatever they're called, what are called? Child parking, parent and child parking.
Yes.
And I can tell you for absolutely sure, only 2 of them are ever used.
Yeah.
So I'm saying to myself, well, I'm an adult, so I just park there and I go and get my shop. When I come back, they say, oh, if anybody ever... I've only ever been asked once.
That's courting trouble,
No, it's not. I've only been asked once. And I say, oh, no, they're still in the store. No, don't worry.
You're expecting them to believe that not only have you got children, but that actually you've left them in the shop.
No. I said I'm taking the car round to pick them up. Is that okay? Oh, right, all right, sir. Yeah, no problem.
But that's lying, though.
I'm just brazen about it.
Well, no, but that's ridiculous.
Yeah, but they've got
shocking thing
they've got
to
they've got their car park completely misarranged. It's outrageous.
But as I've often said to you, if you have got little kids who are in child car seats, which of course you don't have,
yes,
and you open the door and you're very, very close to the next car, it's very difficult to get them out of the child car seat and put them in a pushchair. Yeah, I know. That's what it's for. Yeah, I mean, I don't even use them now because my kids are older.
Yeah.
Right? So if I go to the supermarket with my kids, I do not park in the parent and child space.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh, okay.
Because it's for people who have got pushchairs and have difficulty getting children out the back of the car. Yes. I'm quite shocked that you would admit to that.
Well, I'm sorry, but I have no conscience about it because I believe I'm in the right.
Conscious about anything, do you?
No, I believe I'm in the right. Now, getting back to the quiz, I'm glad that Martin has sent this. He's highlighted the mistake you made in the first question. Oh, yeah. Just listen to the quiz, Porky. MG was struggling to cover his slip-up in the first question. He said...
I don't set the questions. I can't tell you that.
He was too excited that his gerrymandering had worked.
Not true.
And it's absolutely true, Mike. The first question was inaccurate. You said Harold Wilson's third administration, it was his second. His third came when he won that election you talked about.
I will have to check that out, and I will check it out. But like I said, I get the questions, I read them out, and I tell you whether the answer is what I've got down or not. And that is a simple fact.
That means I got 5.5.
And even if, for example, you're correct to say that it was his second administration, not his third, you still didn't get the answer right. You said there was no further election, and there was.
No, you misled me.
No, I said March 1974, which everybody knows was the one that he won that was a hung parliament.
Yes.
And then October 74 was the one that he won with the three-person majority.
But you mentioned his third administration. I knew there was no election after his third. He stood down and James Callaghan took over in 76.
Well, that was the way that so you didn't know it was March and October, though, so you didn't get it right.
Listen, I'm not going to argue with you. You got it wrong. Now, listen, how many times have I told you that what I do is to keep fit, keep my heart in shape. Only 1/3 of my heart works. I walk 25 to 30 miles a week across the North and South Downs. Okay, I've told you that many times.
You have?
Right. Now,
that doesn't mean it's true. It just means you've told me that many times.
Does it surprise you to know that a fully fledged scientific report now says if you take a brisk daily walk, you can cut out almost all the effects that alcohol can have on your body?
Well, that depends on the walk, how much walking and how much alcohol.
Walking briskly for 25 minutes each day. You don't do that, do you?
I walk for a fair amount, yeah.
Walking briskly for 20 minutes each day.
I mean, for example, when I came into the car tonight, but if I'm not in the car, then I have to walk to the bus. I have to walk from the bus to the train. I have to walk from the train to here. You know,
may help to offset some of the health risks of drinking up to 7 glasses of wine a week. A week?
A week.
Yeah. I think we get through that in half a lunchtime.
Well, I mean, I would say, for example, last night when I got home, you and I, because of the various reasons that we didn't do it, we didn't go for a post-show meeting.
I was absolutely
where we normally
exhausted.
Where we normally go for a couple of pints.
Yeah, we do.
It's not a lot of drinking,
no,
right?
That's right, yeah.
So I went home and I decided I wasn't particularly hungry, although I did have some crumble and custard in the fridge, so I had a bit of that.
Yeah, good.
So I thought that was quite nice.
That's all right.
And then I sat down and I thought, fancy watching a movie. Once again, there was nothing decent on TV.
Right.
So I went through my DVD collection.
Yes.
And I found The Osterman Weekend.
Okay.
Which is a film, I think, from sort of the 80s.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
But it's a great film. It's got John Hurt in it. Craig T. Nelson, Burt Lancaster.
Hurt, great actor. Burt Lancaster, that ages it a bit.
Well, not really. I mean, he was still making films up into the sort of mid to late 80s. But it's a Robert Ludlum film, right?
Robert Ludlum,
who's a fascinating spy writer, right?
Yeah.
And it's a really intricate thing, and it's directed by Sam Peckinpah. Remember him?
Peckinpah, yeah, I remember him, yeah.
And so I watched that. I thought, this is great. I cracked open a bottle of wine, and by the time that was finished, it was around about 1:30ish or something like that.
What happened then?
So then I thought, well, I'm not quite ready to go to bed. It was still quite hot.
Okay.
And I thought, there's no point in me going to bed and lying there wondering why I can't sleep.
Yeah.
So I know what I'll do. I'll open another bottle of wine.
Right.
Because I'd finished the first one.
Yeah, okay.
And it was a rosé, very nice rosé. I thought I'll watch The Godfather. Because, I haven't seen
the original
Godfather for a while.
not Godfather 2.
Godfather 1.
I prefer Godfather 2.
Yeah, well, the first one's great, though. Brilliant.
It opens, doesn't it, with a man bowing in front of the Don and saying, I want you to sort out this,
some horrible people have attacked his daughter.
That's right, yeah.
And he's a local, I think he's a local undertaker.
That's right, something like that, yeah.
And that's where he says, you show me no respect. You come to my house and ask me to do murder. But it's his daughter's wedding.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
It's just a fantastic film. And so by the time that had finished, it was about 4:30.
And that's 2 bottles into the night.
And I'd had a couple of bottles of wine,
that's sick.
So how many glasses would that be?
Well, a large glass, you get 3 out of those out of a bottle. A small medium glass, you get 5. So that's 10 glasses. Yeah. 10 glasses. So it says here you should have 7 a week. You had 10 in 2 hours.
Yeah. No, not 2 hours. No, in about 5 hours.
5 hours, okay. Yeah. It says researchers have found that 150 minutes of gentle exercise a week can reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease and some cancers associated with moderate drinking.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to worry about that because that wasn't moderate drinking.
No.
That was just bladderization
but
drinking.
I mean, the thing is that, you know, the amount of drinking that I do on a regular basis varies from day to day. So, you know, the previous day it was hardly anything, for example.
There's a professor here who says, our results provide an additional argument for the role of physical activity as a means to promote the health of the population, even in the presence, this is a warning to you, even in the presence of other less healthy behaviours. You know what that is?
Like what?
Bladderisation.
Oh, right, okay. Well, why are you telling me all this?
Well, I'm telling you all this because I fear, or do I fear? I don't know, but I'm concerned that your lack of physical exercise will be the downfall.
I get plenty of physical exercise. I get plenty of physical exercise.
It says the public health relevance of the results of the tests are further emphasised by the recently updated alcohol consumption guidelines review by the UK Chief Medical Officer, who found that cancer mortality risk starts from a relatively low level of alcohol consumption.
Oh, yeah.
But that research has been rubbish, doesn't it?
Well, it has.
It's been thrown away.
And also, I mean, of course there are certain things that you can do to make yourself have a healthier lifestyle.
Yes.
But by the same token, lots of people react differently to different things being put into their body, don't they?
Yeah, of course they do.
You know?
Of course they do.
And I mean, I must admit, as touching as it is that you care about my welfare...
Well, no, I don't care about your welfare, but that'll be your downfall.
Oh,
and remember, if you're not around, then the two mice becomes one mite.
Yeah.
And that's, you know...
Well, I mean, I'd have to say the chances of me being around longer than you are pretty good.
You think so?
I mean, you're the one who keeps telling me you were 36 hours from death, that only a third of your heart works.
Yeah, but I'm still
You
here.
know, that you're constantly kind of worried that you might suddenly keel over and
anyway,
die.
Anyway, as usual, right, with this survey, all the nutters, the scientific nutters get involved. So, for instance, they interpret it like this. Some health experts have expressed concern that the findings may be misinterpreted by the public as a green light to increase the alcohol consumption
as long as they're walking around.
if they do more exercise,
Well, I mean...
If you walk between pubs and have a few pints, there's nothing wrong with that. I do it all the time.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, in terms of, say, general intake, glasses of wine-wise, I mean, 10 glasses of wine in a session would not be outrageous for you, would it?
No.
So, I mean, you know, it's not like I'm somehow drinking more.
I mean, I wouldn't do it all the time, but I mean...
Well, no, you don't know. The Osman weekend, by the way, is 1983. I just looked it up.
Are you sure Burt Lancaster was in it?
Yeah, of course I'm sure.
He was, you know what his...
He played the head of the CIA.
Do you know what his most famous role was?
Was the swimming pool?
No, the Birdman of Alcatraz.
Oh, the Birdman of Alcatraz.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Well, he was in an awful lot of great films, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. Now, just to finish this, scientists are saying the general public might ask themselves... Does this mean that I don't have to worry about the effect of drinking on my health as long as I get enough exercise? And the scientists say, no, it does not. There's a long list of reasons why you should never take that attitude towards this. It's all, honestly, it's all a load of garbage.
It really changes every single week, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, one week it's okay to drink red wine.
Yes.
Next week it's not okay to drink red wine. Another week it's not a good idea to drink white wine. You know, I mean, 2 pints of beer is too many. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
I mean, it must be very difficult to run a pub these days because of all the kind
I think it must
restrictions that you have to be under.
I think it must be.
We didn't actually get to the point, did we, of what you're up to this weekend, aside from all of the work that you're doing.
Yes.
Aside from all of that, is there anything exciting going on? You going down to the coast by any chance?
Not sure yet. I have to see how how it pans out. I mean, the thing
how the
is,
lie of the land is.
Well, the thing is, we're working Sunday, right? 1 to 4.
Are. Yes.
On Talk Sport.
On Talk Sport.
Talk Sport, right? Now, on Saturday, I do genuinely believe that we're all going to be absolutely infatuated by
football.
Well, the midday kickoff is Manchester City versus Manchester United.
Indeed.
No, actually, it's at United. I'm sorry. It's Manchester United versus Manchester City.
Yeah.
It's at Old Trafford.
It is.
And that is a fascinating game. So my weekend is positioned around 3 things.
Yes.
I have a lunch tomorrow. Okay.
Yes.
You know, nice
well,
lunch.
I'm not invited to, but that's okay.
No, you're not invited. No, things to do. On Saturday, I need to be in a very comfortable environment to watch the match. And I have to say, although I've got facilities at both my homes, which of course you would know I have, I sometimes like watching those in pubs.
Sometimes.
Because of a bit of atmosphere.
Yeah.
But not a...
But not too rowdy.
No, not a rough and rowdy pub.
No.
A civilised. And there are a couple of civilised places I know where what I do is... I give them a call and I say, just set my table up, please, you know, about...
Well, so rope off an area for you?
No, not rope off an area, but set my table up about a good sort of 20 feet from the screen, and that's where I'll have lunch and watch the game.
Yeah.
And I get left alone. So
they tell you to get lost when you
No.
Really? I'm amazed.
And then the third pivotal point of the weekend is being here for midday-ish to join you for a show.
Yes.
So if you take all that in... 3 individual days, then I've got 3 PowerPoints for the weekend, haven't I?
It sounds like I'm probably not going to make it down to gospel.
Well, no, I will, because one of the places I most like watching football is a very, very nice pub/restaurant stroke hotel down on the coast at a place called Leon Solomon.
Have they got parking for mothers and children?
No, I have that. It's not a supermarket.
It's a hotel, though.
Yeah, it's a hotel, yeah.
Robbie says this, so-called man of the people parking in family space. How low can you go?
No.
It's not a popular thing you've done.
No, nobody else is using it.
Well, they might not be using it at the time, but if you take the space, they might want to use it when you're there.
I've never come back and found any more spaces occupied than the ones that were occupied when I went in.
Really?
I've never had a confrontation with anybody who said you can't use on that space. I just think most people are too battened down by authority to challenge it. And you challenge it and say, well, I'm going to park there because I'm a normal person, you know? And by the way, when you have an exquisite car like mine, also, you don't want to park always in the normal bays in case somebody bashes your door. Because I don't want somebody in a beaten-up old, trash can to open his door.
Like my car.
Yes, that's right, exactly like your car, to open his door and inflict damage on my pristine vehicle.
So that's why you really do it.
Well,
that's the point.
It's one of the reasons,
That is the point. You see the time, by the way.
Yeah.
Coming up, we're going to talk to Jasmine Milton, who owns Anuko, who's a very grumpy-looking dog, but is making her an absolute fortune. We are the two mics. It is coming to the end of another busy week for us. We'll be back on Sunday, of course, on TalkSport from 1 to 4. It's a very big weekend. A couple of people are asking, is there a Two Mics Predictor League this year to join?
Yes.
Which we'll have to find out about, actually.
We will
because
indeed.
It's already a couple of weeks into the season.
We
haven't managed to get that going yet.
Yes.
But we shall see.
Somebody's just worked out the equation which compares the amount you drink to the amount you'd have to walk to ward off the dangerous effects of the drink. And it says here from Stephen, thank you very much indeed, MG would have to walk 600 miles a week.
A week, yeah.
In order
There's not much chance of that, really, is there?
In order to nullify the damaging effects of your mass
between,
bladderisation.
the difference between you and I is I've just told the truth about how much I had to drink last night. Where you never tell the truth about how much you drink because you pretend that you don't drink as much as you actually do.
Well, I don't, actually.
Really?
I don't.
Well, how much did you have to drink today?
Today I had 2 pints of beer.
Okay. Yeah. And then you'll go to bed when you get home and not have anything else?
I think that's probably the case.
Well, that's fair enough.
Probably the case.
That's fair enough.
Yeah. Something happened in.
But I mean, it's not very often that I will sit up until 4:30 in the morning watching movies and drinking wine. I mean, I just did it once.
Oh no, I think you do that quite a lot.
No, I don't.
Well, 3:30 then.
No,
you don't go to bed early. You don't like going to bed early.
No, because I'm not somebody that goes to bed, particularly if it's very hot.
Yeah.
There's no point in just lying there thinking, why can I not go to sleep?
I'll tell you what happened to me today.
And also working at night, you tend to get into a rhythm of things. And I've never been a great person early mornings. You like to get up early in the morning. Yeah. I like to stay up quite late.
But we've been working mostly, I would say, days over the last sort of 6 or 8 weeks. Anyway, so what happened to me today is I'm in this, refreshment palace, otherwise known as the bar, the boozer.
Okay.
And this chap comes in because he's seen a sign outside which said our new range of beers in cans.
Beers in cans?
Yeah, but not like the traditional beer can, more like a sort of can of Tizer or something like that.
No, really?
That size.
Like a small
yeah, that size.
Like a Coke or something?
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, so he comes in. He says to a young lady who's a barmaid, I've just seen your sign, and she said yes. Right. Well, I'd like a can of that, please. And she said, well, there's a range of 6. He said, can I see them all?
Yeah.
So she went and got all 6
were they particularly unusual brands?
I don't know, because I didn't take any interest in it. I wouldn't drink beer out of a can in a pub. I don't know why you would.
Seems unusual. You might buy them in a supermarket.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So she comes and puts them all in the bar, and then he started asking what you like, and what's the specific gravity of this one? Oh, no, I'm not joking.
Really?
And all what's the alcoholic, density of this? And this poor girl.
Maybe it's another mystery shopper.
Well, maybe. And she had other customers who were all sort of starting to tap their fingers on the bar and tap their finger like that. And after about 5 minutes, the guy said, no, he says, I don't see one there that at all attractive. Thank you very much. And he just left.
How bizarre.
Very bizarre indeed. Yeah.
How strange.
Strange people.
Yeah, well, maybe people will have seen something similar. Now, we've got Jasmine Milton on the phone. Right. She's the owner of Anuko, Siberian Husky, who's got a very unusual face.
Yes.
Which people would suggest, when they look at it, makes him look as if he's quite grumpy.
Well, no, I think it's an intriguing one. Do you know what it looks like? He's a real dog, but he looks like a cartoon.
Yes.
It's brilliant.
And I think that's what people love about it. Let's find out from Jasmine how he has been helping her to make a rather large amount of money.
Indeed.
Jasmine, a very good evening to you.
Hiya, how are you?
Yeah,
very well indeed, thank you.
Thank you very much for coming onto the show and talking to us about Nuko. Does he have any idea that he's become a bit of a celebrity?
You know what? I think he's taking up more of the bed than he usually does, so I think he has a bit of an idea.
Where did this all start then, Jasmine?
This all started actually over a year ago when he initially first went viral. I posted a picture of him to my personal Twitter account, and I went to bed. Yeah. And I woke up the next morning, and it had like 25,000 retweets. And from then on, that was when people discovered him, and they discovered his Instagram, and they were like, "Oh my God, he looks really grumpy all the time," and it kind of just snowballed from there.
Yeah, he does. I mean, when I described him as looking like a cartoon figure, would you agree with me? It's a it's a sort of thing that people draw, but you very, very rarely find it in the physical form of a dog's face.
Yeah, he really does look like a cartoon character, especially when he's relaxing.
What is your Twitter account so I can have a look?
I actually deleted my Twitter account, but Nuko has his own Instagram and Facebook page.
Oh, we'll have to check that out.
Yeah,
and I mean, basically, his face is making money for you, which is the thing that's amazing, really, isn't it?
Not only done that, it's not only getting me through medical school, I'm actually able to launch a business through it as well. It's really crazy how much he's done. Right. Just a dog.
And how does that work? Because just putting a picture of your dog on social networking, how does that sort of provide revenue? I don't understand.
Well, when he first went viral, a company reached out to me and they basically said, if we copyright this photo, any magazine or article that uses the photo will have to pay for it.
Right.
So I originally got money for all the times that his photos were used, and then Duke and Media wanted to copyright his videos.
Right.
And then he got employed by a modelling agency that would send him out for appearances, which I got paid for.
Golly.
And what sort of people are using his picture? I mean, like companies selling stuff. What sort of stuff is he doing?
It's just like companies who just want to use his images. Just as like for example, my local pet shop hired him for a photo shoot just so that he can model some of their stuff and then that's go on their website and just stuff like that.
I mean, he has got a fantastic face. It really is amazing, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, I've got a Labrador, right? And so, I mean, probably like you, when you look at his face, and when other people look at his face, they just see one expression. I mean, I can see a lot of different expressions when I look at my dog, depending on what he's thinking or what he's doing. But, I mean, can you see different expressions other than the one that we see?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Sometimes he does look extremely happy as well. It's very rare for him, but he does look happy. He was on the cover of a magazine called Dogs Today, and he just looks so happy in it that people were like, "Is that a Nuko?" It doesn't look like him because he looks happy.
So that could be a problem for you, because most people want to see a Nuko with his grumpy look. What happens if he's having a happy day and you can't get him to be grumpy?
That actually happened the other day when a reporter came round and they were like, "Can you make him do the look?" And I was like, "I can't make him do the look."
No.
But, I kind of say to the companies, "Are you wanting him for this look or just for his general appearance?" And usually they just, because he's just such a stunning dog. And I don't mind what kind of expression he pulls.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely.
And when you chose him, did he look like that, or I mean, what sort of age was he when you got him, and has he sort of grown into his face?
Yeah, I got him when he was 8 weeks old. Actually, when he was a puppy, the thing with huskies is that they're masked. We call them masks. And when he was a puppy, it was much more blacker, so he was much more angrier looking when he was a puppy. And as he's got older, it's kind of faded. But no, he's always had this look. He gets it from his dad, Roman, who he's inherited his facial expressions from.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Have you not had a problem here, Jasmine, with if you've posted videos of this beautiful dog, a Nuko, people just nick them? People just with big websites just say, "Oh, I tell you what, we'll use that," and you have very little defence against that. I'm afraid.
I suppose.
Well, yeah, but you can't copyright. You can't copyright a video, can you?
I'm not sure what it's called. I can't remember the term that they use, but Duke and Media, they do this thing where they latch onto a video.
Yeah.
And if a company uses it without their permission and without paying, they can get it taken down, or they can make the company pay for it.
I see. But the
term is in copyright, but I can't remember what the term is.
But in general terms, what I'm saying is, if somebody just wants to look at a Nuko just for the sheer pleasure of seeing this lovely dog of yours, they do it for free, don't they?
Yeah, they do it
exactly.
For free, and
Exactly.
There's nothing stopping people from just taking his videos, and
Exactly.
sometimes they get away with it. Sometimes
Exactly.
They don't.
And I mean, I don't want to be negative about it, but you have to worry about sort of dog nappers now because he's such a famous dog that you have to sort of have a bodyguard for him.
I actually said this. I was actually talking to my friend, and I was thinking he's so famous now. I think if he did go missing, he would be almost too hot to handle because everyone knows his face.
Yeah.
And someone would pick him up and be like, wait, because I get stopped in the street and I'm like, wait, isn't that a Nuko? So I'm sure if he ever was stolen or was lost, people would recognise him.
Well, that would be the Shergar situation, wouldn't it? When you take an animal that's world famous, what can you do with it? You know,
Exactly. And where did the name Anuko come from? Where did you get that from?
His mum's called Anushka, which is, I think it's a Siberian name, but I kind of really liked her name and I wanted to make it more masculine, so I kind of played around with the name and came up with Anuko, but it actually doesn't exist.
Okay. Have you got any other pets, Jasmine?
I have 2 cats, which Anuko is actually scared of.
Well, I was going to say, you know, he must be king of the heap, so to speak, in your household, mustn't he?
Apparently not.
At all.
Really?
Not at all.
Yeah.
He's my cat. We have a cat called Sausage, and she just bullies Anuko. She's horrible to him, and he's so scared of her.
Yeah.
And does Anuko get any better sort of treats now? And does he enjoy a better lifestyle now that he's making all this money?
Oh yeah, definitely. He gets spoiled so much anyway, even before he went viral. But all of these companies sending him gifts and treats, he's definitely loving it at the moment.
Okay, and when are you going to make your first appearance on Britain's Got Talent?
When he has a talent other than facial expressions.
Yeah.
Well, you have to have 2 dogs, identical dogs, to win that.
I suppose you would. But anyway, Jasmine, it's a wonderful story, and he must be Britain's most loved dog at the moment, so you've got a pretty big responsibility, haven't you, looking after him?
Yeah, I do. He's
brilliant
great.
stuff. Well, Jasmine, thank you so much, and give our best to Anuko. I don't suppose you can make him bark for us in the background, but thank you very much indeed. Jasmine Milton there, the owner of Anuko. What a lovely story.
It is, fantastic
really
story.
Nice
Don't you
story.
think we should take a picture and put out a picture of Anuko?
I think we should, yeah.
Indeed.
I shall do that forthwith, because
Exactly.
I've been looking at some of them on the internet. I'm going to tell you as well, coming up, about a couple who actually put on theatrical productions for dogs as well. I'm just going to tweet out a picture, actually, of
Anuko.
Anuko, yeah, because it's a fascinating thing.
It is,
what I also want to talk to you about, though, is this rather unusual performance company, right? Yeah. Alex Bailey and Croute de Jurat are an artistic duo, and they bring theatre and performance art to pets. How do you imagine that works?
Sorry, the pet's the audience.
The pets are the audience.
And who's performing?
The 2 people, Alex Bailey and Croute de Jurat.
What, they put on theatrical performances?
Yeah, look, there's a picture of them there. Look, they lie on the floor, and the dogs are all around them.
So what's all that about?
Well, it's about entertaining the pets.
So they're getting on stage and the dogs sit there in front of the stage.
Well, no, they tend to do it. They don't do it in they don't book a hall and get the dogs all sitting in 700 seats.
That's what I mean.
So they go sort of to your house. And they'll go into the garden, or if they can do it in the living room, if the living room's big enough, to put on a performance for the dog. Why are you looking at me like I've gone mad?
Well, it's crazy. I mean, that's just like playing with a dog.
Theatrical entertainment for pets essentially involves Alex and Croute getting in front of some animals and putting on a show, primarily featuring crawling on the floor, dramatic movement, and occasionally writhing around under blankets.
Well, I'm sorry, that's like I had a girlfriend once who had a.
Just to writhe around under blankets.
No, well, it was a bit of that, but she had a black Labrador. Okay. Yeah. And the black lab was so frisky, I mean, as black labs are, you know. And I used to, sometimes when we came back from the Indian restaurant, you know, late at night round the corner, we'd always go and first make sure the dog was okay.
Yeah, from the Indian restaurant.
Then we get the Indian restaurant. Right. And she had a fantastic habit of going into the Indian restaurant in the dress she just changed into because we'd left work. I worked with her at the same place. You know?
Yeah, of course.
And she had this pinafore dress, if you know what that is. You know? And it was white,
right? Well, with a sort of a sort of a bib, if you like.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that sort of thing. You know, and
that's not a good dress to go to an Indian restaurant.
Well, I was about to say, you know, I mean
that is asking for trouble. That is.
Well, when we were in there, it was in pristine condition. Yeah. But she liked to drink and she liked the food and all that. When we came out, I'm not joking, it looked like the tablecloth. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Well, why would you ever wear anything like that?
I've no idea. I don't know.
It's like a number of times I find myself wearing a white shirt and it turns out I'm going to eat spaghetti bolognese.
Yeah, right.
And it gets all splattered with the sauce.
Anyway, we get back to the house, right? Yeah. And the dog there, and of course he's bounding around because he hasn't seen us for 3 or 4 hours, you know. And then what I used to do is I used to go into the kitchen and get the oven gloves. And I used to wear them like boxing gloves, get down on my hands and knees, and I used to have a boxing match with the dog.
Well, so that's not dissimilar to what these guys do.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, what I'm saying, I didn't call it theatricals or anything. It was just playing with the dog. The dog loved it.
Well, they're not playing with the animals as much as actually performing for them. I mean, see, there's another picture of them sort of crawling around behind each other in front of a cat.
Yeah.
And the cat's watching them, probably thinking, what on earth are these two people doing?
I do honestly think that's a bit...
They've performed for more than 80 pets already, right? They're going to be visiting Bristol. And they say that the reason they do it is that they realise that pets have got a great sense of humour, great charisma, and great creativity.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
And they say, we believe that pets are also artists like ourselves, but their work often goes unnoticed.
Yeah, I think, okay, it's a bit above me.
You think that's a bit weird, do you?
There's
another picture there of a dog watching them.
Oh, yeah, great. and they're crawling around pretending to be a dog.
I don't know why you're so dismissive of it.
Now, listen, talking about all this, about animals and all this kind of stuff, I was told something today which I find very, very difficult to believe. But we did have an expert on the show earlier this week talking about an explosion of... What was it? Malaria, that's right. And
was it? Well, we were talking about mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes, right. Yeah. Now, if we had him on tonight, I would read this to him, which I read out of a science journal today, and I frankly can't believe it. 200 billion, you got the figure, 200 billion, daddy longlegs, many up to 4 inches across, will hatch in the United Kingdom this autumn due to perfect conditions.
200 million?
Yeah, 200 billion. 200 billion. Due to perfect conditions with warm summer and recent rain in the UK.
Blimey.
Now, it can't be right, can it?
Well, it could be.
200 billion.
Well, it could be, because, I mean, if you think of the
200 billion daddy longlegs.
Yeah. Well,
how often do you see a daddy longlegs?
Well, you see them. I see them in the country, when I'm down there.
Yeah, but, I mean, what, 1 a day, 2 a day?
Sometimes.
Where did 200 billion come from?
I tell you what I used to see quite a lot of was crane flies.
Crane flies, yeah.
Which are a bit like daddy longlegs with wings. And, I mean, they're attracted to light, for example. So if you live in the country and it's,
Sorry to correct you there, Mike, but daddy longlegs actually have wings.
Daddy longlegs, no. Do they?
Of course they do.
Are you sure?
Of course they do. They fly.
Well, then you're talking about crane flies, then?
No. I'm talking about daddy longlegs. Daddy longlegs are one sort of flying animal, flying insect.
Because there is a daddy longlegs spider as well, which doesn't fly.
Okay, well, then maybe there is. But the daddy longlegs fly. The crane you're talking about has a much thicker torso. In fact, it's like a flying seahorse, actually.
A flying seahorse?
Yeah, it is.
It's nothing like a flying seahorse.
It is, honestly.
No, because a crane fly to me is like a daddy longlegs with wings.
No, daddy longleg has wings, you idiot.
Well, I don't think it does.
Of course it does.
Well, we may have to ask the audience.
No, we won't. Well, how do you think daddy longlegs get around if they haven't got wings?
Well, they could walk.
No, rubbish, you see. Honestly, you've lost your marbles.
Well, if they're the things that fly around, then I'm not surprised, because, I mean, quite often, if you're, say, for example, I mean, down at my house, we've got, there's a floodlight that comes out the back door.
Floodlight.
Right, if that's on, then you see hundreds of them flying around.
Yeah, well, not 200 billion. I find that quite a remarkable figure, and something which I find very hard to accept.
Well, maybe we're going to see more and more of them this particular season.
Maybe we are.
Maybe that's the problem.
Maybe we are, but that's the problem with this time of the year, because when you're passing out of summer and passing into autumn, and you've got wetness around and all that kind of stuff, what my mum always used to say, never leave the lights on when you open the windows at night, because you attract nightlife.
That's true.
And that's what these things are.
That is very true.
You have to be very careful.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So maybe all daddy longlegs do have wings. I'm just looking at some pictures of them.
Of course they do. Honestly, I don't know. I thought that was a really remarkable statement for you to say daddy longlegs with wings.
Well, no, because, I mean, see, there's daddy longlegs spider, which is like this thing here. Which has got very similar look to daddy longlegs, but it just doesn't actually have it doesn't have wings, because it's a spider, because spiders don't have wings, do they?
Isn't there? There's no flying ants I'm thinking about.
See, like that, for example, that is a daddy longlegs, but it doesn't have wings. See that? That's in the story that you've just told me about.
I'm looking at it.
Also known as a crane fly.
Yeah.
Common sight in UK homes. But this is actually not the right picture, because it's a daddy long-legged spider.
Yeah, it's not, indeed. Now then, people are interested in your nocturnal drinking habits.
I don't know why.
And Steve has sent a picture in, and this is a picture of a table in a restaurant with, I would say, at least 100 glasses of wine on it. And says, is this typical of your kitchen table when you get home after this show at night?
Well, you see, it's not. It's not, you see. Once again, people get a bit carried away. You present them with one or two facts, and they extrapolate them into ridiculous, sensationalist stories. You know, some of them not dissimilar to the way you do.
Yes.
Because that's what happens, is they copy you.
Yes.
They think that your description of my nightlife or my nocturnal activity is entirely accurate, when it isn't.
Well, you say that, but I mean... to me, it's never too far from the truth.
No.
Now then, I wanted to talk to you about your teeth.
You do?
Yeah, I think you need a bit of treatment on your teeth.
Yeah, actually. I do, actually.
I've said that before.
Yeah.
And, of course, I'm currently having treatment on my teeth, OK?
Well, you're in the midst of it, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I am.
How much is that costing you?
£6,000. But anyway, that's by the by.
Yes,
now then,
people.
Now then, you know the nanny state?
The nanny state?
The nanny state.
What is the nanny state?
Well, nanny state is when politicians are always trying to make out that their concern for the populace is such that they issue all sorts of ridiculous advice and sometimes instructions on what you should do.
Yes.
Now then, we had a talk the other night about the cost of dentistry.
Uh-huh.
Right?
We did. Well, you were saying a lot of people having to go to the doctor to get their teeth done, which I never quite understood, actually.
Well, it's now so expensive that people can't afford to pay, even on the NHS, right? Now, I go to my dentist privately because I think it's unfair of me to take up the very few NHS appointments that are available.
That's very public-spirited of you.
No, true.
Even though you don't mind taking up the space of the mother and children's car parking.
That's a different issue. But what I'm saying is I think it's unfair of me to say, I want some free dental treatment if I can afford to pay for it.
Right.
But I choose that. Now, people who go on the NHS, they don't choose to pay for it because they may not be able to.
But a lot of people who get NHS treatment actually still have to pay anyway,
This is exactly what I'm saying,
Yeah.
but it's still very, very expensive. I think even if you have a fill-in on the NHS or something like that, that can cost you 20 or 30 quid.
Oh, absolutely.
And
well, there's no. I mean, unless you're unemployed,
yes,
or you've got some kind of health card or something like that. There's no such thing as free dentistry anymore in this country.
Is that right? You sure about that?
No, I'm very sure
about
it.
for children?
No, well, children, yes.
Yeah.
Children get it free, but adults don't unless they're unemployed or they've got some kind of, or if they're, I think, new mothers or something.
Right. Okay. Now, apparently, within the last 2 years, whoever the chief medical officer was, or the chief dental officer, they issued one of these government sort of, dictums. Be sure to get your teeth checked twice a year. Right?
Right.
And then they instructed, like, the dental industry to make a facility for all the patients to get
well, as ever, because of the kind of the rise in population in this country, it's not always that easy to get an NHS dentist in the first place, depending on where you live.
Not only that, it says the worried well, as have now been called, because, millions of people have decided that because the government advice was get your teeth checked twice a year. They're now queuing up outside dentists.
Do you know, when I was at university, I know it was a long time ago, a lot of the American students that I used to know, one of whom became my wife, they all came to Britain and got dental treatment because it was because it was free, basically, in those days. So instead of going back to America and paying thousands and thousands of dollars, they all got their teeth done while they were here.
Mind you, that worked the other way because the wife of a friend of ours who was a distinguished correspondent in New York, she was Scottish, right? And when she got there, she found out that along with the job and the apartment and the allowances and all the great financial package you got was free dental treatment in a country where it is the most expensive in the world.
And an awful lot of people, in fact, take a job because the dental treatment is covered.
Exactly, that's right. So she was quite canny, being a Scotswoman and all that. So she, first time she had a problem, she went to the dentist and he said, we can either do this, or we can just take that tooth out, leave the root in and cap it.
Right.
She said, I'll have a cap, thank you very much. Over the space of the next 5 years, she had every single one of her teeth capped.
Really?
And it cost tens of thousands of dollars.
Absolutely.
And she had these gleaming teeth. It was all paid for by the Daily Express.
Yeah.
But anyway, there you go.
But that's very much a thing now. Many more people have gleaming teeth than you used to ever see in this country before.
Absolutely,
I mean, in when we both worked in New York, people used to always go, "Oh yeah, you Brits have always got horrible teeth."
Yes.
But that's now a thing of the past.
Well, not necessarily. Anyway, the worried well, these are the people who've responded to the government advice to go and are now literally clogging up the whole of the dental system.
Right.
So Dr. Sarah Hurley, who is the UK's chief dental officer, has had to say, look, the original advice for the need for twice yearly checkups is a complete misconception. Right. Don't do it.
So more reversal on original advice then?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, don't do it. And she said it wasn't even government advice. Although the government said you can do it, it came from a toothpaste advert.
Really?
So some toothpaste advert comes out, you should get your teeth checked twice a year.
Yeah.
I've recommended by, I don't know which toothpaste brand it was. Yeah,
and the guy there in a white coat.
So they're all now flocking to dentists.
Yeah.
She said millions of patients could reduce the burden on dentists by simply cutting out fizzy drinks and sugary foods.
Yeah.
She said even those with the healthiest teeth can go at least 2 years between checkups. You just don't need them.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence have issued new guidelines which say the time between appointments should vary depending on a patient's age, diet and if they smoke. But nobody needs to go every 6 months.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. But that's not the only reason, of course. We'll talk some more about that coming up very shortly because we're almost out of time, would you believe? we are the Two Mites. There will be a podcast coming out probably a little bit later on, maybe tomorrow morning, I should say. A couple of tweets have come out. Pete says, breaking news, world's largest hamster wheel to be installed in the Two Mites studio.
Seen that.
Hashtag bladderation to fitness.
Yes.
I suppose it's not the most stupid idea that people have come up with. And Martin says, your description of very unusual face. I remember when Mike Parry made derogatory comments about MG's face as a moneymaker.
Yes.
So you can make money out of almost anything.
That was the conversation the night when I said about your image rights, remember?
Yes.
Nearly came to blows.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Yeah,
because I took great exception to you attacking me in such a way.
Yeah, and actually the people who do the show before us on Talk Sport, that was Mr. Goldstein.
The sports bar guys.
Yeah, they thought we were actually going to punch each other's faces in, yeah.
I think a lot of people did. A lot of people are looking forward to that happening, actually, at some point.
They were, yeah.
Ian says this, please mention Dave Middleton. I'm his son-in-law. We have not really bonded. We have really bonded because of your show. Never really spoke much before.
Who's this?
But he's been battling the Big C, and you guys have made his nights.
So who's this
Dave
again?
Middleton is the guy's name.
Dave Middleton, is he the correspondent or is that his father-in-law?
That's his father-in-law. The correspondent is Ian.
Ian, okay. Well, Ian, we wish your father-in-law the very, very best, and if we can bring any inspiration, and I do believe, by the way, and I'm not being a sort of witch doctor now, but your mental state when you're ill is very important.
Yeah.
Very, very important.
Oh, it totally is, yeah.
You've got to be incredibly positive about it. You've got to say, look,
Which is not always easy.
It's not easy if you feel very low. And although I've never had it myself, when you talk to people who have chemotherapy, it's like being sick. Multiply that by 1,000 times. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you feel as low as as you possibly can.
As a snake's belly.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
Martin says this: the Two Mites have performed live in front of animals as well at the Hen and Chickens.
That's a bit harsh, isn't it? The Hen and Chickens are our favourite crowd, really, because it's a small, intimate theatre, and the people who come there, generally speaking, are pretty much devotees of the whole sort of Two Mites culture. Yeah. And if we ever get the chance to do that again, we certainly will.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of people are talking about crane flies and daddy longlegs, saying it's basically the same thing.
Well, there you go.
But some people are asking the question. It's one of those things that you think everybody knows, but until you start discussing it, actually you don't realise that everybody knows it.
Well, absolutely.
Connell says he's heading home to Belfast from the US for a few weeks at Christmas. Would love to catch a live show. Which one would be best? Well, probably Glasgow, I suppose. It's the nearest one to Belfast, isn't it?
Or Liverpool.
Liverpool's November, though.
Liverpool's November.
So I don't know whether you're going to be here for that. It's the beginning of November.
It's true.
Hetty says there are two kinds of daddy longlegs, one with wings and one without.
I didn't know that.
Well, see, I've told you something now. So you called me an idiot for saying that they didn't have wings.
The only daddy longlegs I ever see is floating around in space. I can't imagine daddy longlegs on the ground.
Have you never seen them just on the ground?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, see, I have.
So. Maybe I'm confusing them with the dragonfly. Dragonfly.
Well, dragonflies are completely different, though, because dragonflies have very long bodies.
Yeah, they do,
and very big
Paul McCartney wrote a song called Dragonfly. Now, look, I'll tell you what I want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
This sort of... this kind of theory that, depending on where you live, the atmospheric conditions can do you harm or no harm to your health.
Yes.
Like arthritis, for instance.
You mean like in terms of like altitude or in
terms
of...
sometimes just the temperature, heat. I mean, for instance, I think we talked about Barry Sheen quite recently on the show about how many injuries he suffered in pursuit of his craft as the world motorcycling champion. And in the end, because he broke so many bones in his legs and all that, he emigrated to Australia because simply a cold British winter was too painful for him and all this kind of stuff, Okay. But anyway, this I've come across this theory, the idea that people with arthritis and other types of chronic pain can feel changes in the weather in their joints is much more than an old wives' tale. You can actually anticipate what the weather's going to do through the composition of your bones. Scientists have found that pain really does seem to vary with the seasons. April, far from being the cruelest month, as described in...
in one of the Shakespeare plays, are you thinking?
T.S. Eliot's The Waste Land.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, April is the cruelest month,
All
right. Is in fact, far from being the cruelest month, is when it's most likely to relent, coming out of a winter. The discovery could help medical experts to find treatments to ease patient suffering.
Yes.
It also raises the prospect of pain forecasts to help people plan their pain tolerance.
Yeah. Is this specifically like arthritis and that kind of thing? Or?
It's mostly, it says 28 million people in Britain have some kind of chronic pain.
Yeah.
28 million people in Britain suffering chronic pain.
More than nearly half the population, basically.
That's an astonishing figure. Yeah. And 1 in 10 adults and 1 in 12 children, that's a total of 7.8 million people. The pain they suffer is classed as severe. I mean, that's awful, that.
That is terrible.
That's terrible.
Well, you see, when I mean, I don't know whether you've ever broken anything major in your body. I know you've had medical issues before, but I broke my wrist playing football back in sort of, I don't know, the 90s, I guess. And they told me that I might get arthritis pain. Right. But I never have, fortunately.
No,
I mean, I thought if I was going to get it, I might get it by now.
I guess sciatica, and I don't know why, and it just happens. You step out the shower and you put your foot down wrongly on the mat, you know. But anyway, just to finish this, ever since Hippocrates, is it? Is that the
Hippocrates? Yeah, as in the Hippocratic Oath.
That's right.
Do no harm.
That's right. Ever since Hippocrates speculated that wind and rain might bring physical hardship with them, researchers and patients alike have believed that there's a close link between the twinges you feel in your body and the weather. So your body basically is like a barometer.
Yes.
Your body's telling you how much, what the barometric pressure is and all that kind of stuff. Now, up to now, the nature of that link has been an old wives' tale. It's eluded science. However, recently, academics at the University of Manchester launched Cloudy with a Chance of Pain. This is a smartphone app, so you could probably find it on your
Cloudy
tab.
with a Chance of Pain, as in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which was a film. It was a kid's film.
What was?
Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Really? Yeah. It was a kind of animated movie.
Who was Cloudy?
Well, it was an animated movie about a world where food fell from the sky.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So these clouds, which normally dispense rain, were dispensing food for the children.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Right. But everybody got very greedy, and it was a sort of, it was a lesson in, how people react to things like that.
Like an Aesop fable.
Kind of, yeah. Like if you get something for free, how much of it do you take?
That's right. No such thing as a free lunch.
Exactly.
Anyway, it goes on to say a smartphone app in which chronic pain patients could record how their condition varied from day to day. So far, more than 9,000 people around the UK have used it to log their levels of pain as well as their mood, exercise patterns and the local weather.
Right.
And as a result, early results based on 100 participants in Leeds, London and Norwich have indicated this relationship has very little to do with the temperature. I thought that was the point of it, actually.
Yeah.
The app users said they'd spent the greatest number of days in severe or very severe pain in February. So what they're saying is it's not the temperature, it's actually the time of the year.
Yeah, and it is more to do with the pressure then. Because, I mean, there are times, for example, and I mean, this may not be a ridiculous thing to say, or you might think it is, but you don't know why, for some reason, some days you feel great.
No.
And other days, you just don't.
My dad used to call it the chemistry when you got out of bed in the morning.
Yeah. And it's nothing to do with what you've done the previous day. It's nothing to do with how much sleep you've had. Agree. Nothing to do with how much you've had to drink. Just some days you feel brilliant, and other days you just feel like bleh.
Some days if I'm walking across the Downs and I've had like 4 pints of beer the day before, I feel brilliant and I think this beer must be good for me. However, 2 days later,
you try the same remedy.
Yeah, and it's nothing. Anyway, sorry. So the point I'm making here is that it's actually the time of year and basically mean temperatures. So the worst, according to the test so far on this app, the worst you're ever going to feel if you're a constant pain sufferer is going to be in February. It falls back dramatically by April, but then rises again towards June when the damp summer may have worsened the symptoms.
Really?
Okay. So this is you've got to think about all this. And actually, you're absolutely right. This is of big interest to the UK Centre for Arthritis Research.
Yes.
You know?
Well, I mean, that is one of the worst pains that you can feel. I should say, by the way, it's only just been drawn to my attention because I got a tweet from Paul who said, please wish Ian Lee well from his listeners. He's been unhurt in a car crash. He's had a car crash of some kind.
Who has?
Ian.
When?
That's why he's not going to be here tonight. Tonight, presumably, on the way in.
Well, how come we didn't know that and we work here?
Well, because I'm just finding out. And I've just looked at his Twitter. No show tonight. I've crashed, literally and metaphorically. Car ruined. I'm physically okay, but mentally broke. Sorry to let you down. Well, we just wish you the best, Ian.
Shocking. We do wish you the best. Of course we do.
Recover soon, and
we're
I'm
in
sure,
good shape, pal, and hope your car's in good shape as well, because that's a...
Well, it sounds like the car isn't in good shape, but he's fortunate at least that he's not injured anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, you've now got through all the stress and pressure of replacing your vehicle and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
So, get well soon, buddy, if you're in a bit of a problem.
And it is the best of Ian Lee coming up very, very shortly.
Okay, that's great.
You and I will be, I'm going to be tootling off to Sussex. Actually, a guy tweeted me a little bit earlier on today to say, any chance of telling us where you're going for post-show bladderation, so I could come and take a picture.
I know, yeah.
And I said, to be honest, so I mean, on some nights it would have been a good thing to do, but tonight, sadly, because I'm driving, I won't be doing any of that.
No, of course not.
Although I may have a little tincture when I get home.
Have a tincture when you get home. That's a good idea.
A couple of hours from now.
Are you going to take in the big game on Saturday?
I certainly will.
Yeah.
I certainly will. Well, yeah. I've predicted a draw. Actually, I think that.
I think that's a very safe bet.
Trafford.
It's a safe bet.
Well, I think there's going to be so much hype around the game.
I think Manchester United will do it.
Yeah, very possibly. But it's going to be very entertaining watching the sort of interplay, and even if you're not a football fan, watching the interplay between Pep Guardiola and Jose Mourinho.
Oh, it's utterly fascinating.
Who are like sort of guys who are destined to be at war with each other for the whole of their lives.
I totally agree.
I think it'll be fascinating.
I didn't realise, actually, until I read up on the history of it, that one reason why the rivalry is so intense is that Jose Mourinho applied for the Barcelona job before Pep Guardiola got it.
Right.
I didn't realise that.
And they must have known each other while Jose was there, right?
Jose was assistant coach when Guardiola was still the captain of the Barcelona team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Massive weekend of all sorts of things coming up.
Yep.
We will be back, for those of you who listen to us wherever we are. We're on TalkSport from 1 to 4 on Sunday afternoon.